This week's episode is brought to you by Blue Harvest Vintage. Are you a collector? Blue Harvest love to help you find that missing piece you need to complete your collection. They have extensive stock of vintage Star Wars vehicles and mint-on-card action figures, as well as new The Force Awakens and Black Series items. Blue Harvest have Funko Pops, Lego, Dinky, Corgi, Matchbox and more. Everything a collector could possibly need. If they don't stock it, then let them know, and their knowledgeable staff will be only too pleased to help. Reach out to Blue Harvest on Twitter at Blue Harvest UK, Facebook, Blue Harvest Vintage Collectibles, a website, blueharvestvintage.co.uk, or email at blueharvesttoys@gmail.com.
Talk Star Wars is a proud member of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network. Follow at SW Commonwealth on Twitter and take your first steps into a larger world. This is Talk Star Wars, the official podcast at talkstarwars.co.uk. Hello everyone, welcome back to Talk Star Wars. I'm Mark.
Stephen.
I'm Rob.
And I'm Paul.
On December 27th, 2016, we lost a major part of the Star Wars family when Carrie Fisher passed away just days after suffering a major cardiac event on a flight from London to LA. Carrie has been a significant part of our lives since she first breathed life into Princess Leia Organa in 1977's Star Wars. The news of Carrie's passing was made even more difficult when her mother, Hollywood legend Debbie Reynolds, passed away just one day after her daughter. Carrie's brother Todd said, "She really just wanted to be with Carrie." Much has been said about Carrie in the past week or so, about her resilience in the face of addiction and a challenge of mental illness, about her success as an actress, a script doctor, and as a writer. But whatever Carrie was to you, to us, she'll always be royalty. So we want to share a few thoughts about Carrie and the character she has made so unforgettable, Princess Leia. Guys, how did you hear this horrible, horrible news over Christmas?
Well, I guess I'll go first. I mean, I kept looking on the BBC website literally every 20 minutes since a heart attack. Every time I was awake, I would be on the app just seeing if there was any news. And then on Christmas evening, we were in bed about 11:30, and I did the mandatory check, just thinking, okay, no news is good news. And Jem and my mum was sitting next to me, and I said, oh my God. Well, there's no news about Carrie, but George Michael's dead. And I just couldn't believe it. I was, and so like, I will forever, and then of course, the next day, found out about Carrie, but I will forever put George Michael and Carrie Fisher together now in my mind, because it was just the worst Christmas ever. You know, it was just awful. Just awful. And I always will put those two together now. In fact, when I listen to George Michael music, I'm also thinking of Carrie Fisher as well. Kind of strange, but, you know, I was thinking of her, and then, wouldn't you believe it, my favourite singer's dead, and it's just terrible. The whole Christmas was awful.
It's been an awful cat, you know, a terrible year.
And her mum dying the next day, and her brother must feel just the worst in the world ever now, losing both. I just can't imagine it. It's just...
Paul?
I was with friends, and I was with friends, and to them it wasn't such a high impact, but I think we were doing breakfast or something on the Sunday morning, possibly, or Saturday morning. I can't really remember because it was quite foggy, and I mean just mood-wise. And I think one of them just happened to go on their phone, and it's the first time I hadn't thought about it for like 2 hours, 3 hours, early morning. And then Poppy just sort of popped it across the room. Oh, Carrie! He didn't mention that Fisher. He just said, "Oh, Carrie's gone," in light of the other news we got. And I just sort of stared at the wall for a few minutes, and I think, and immediately my wife knew that's got an impact more than they realise on Paul, sort of thing. And all I'm going to follow up with is basically a lot of people outside the fanboy realm, and I'm not using the word in any kind of silly state, don't really know what she did, who she helped, what she stood for deep down. They see the junky tabloid press and so on, which, to be honest, as much as it might have a bit of truth to, you know, some of the things she did, doesn't have an ounce of sort of depth into who the character was. And I'm just going to say, you know, Disney's lost a princess. Simple as that.
Absolutely. Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of echo some of the sentiments of the others. I was at my mum's, and like Paul said, it was the first time I'd kind of not been thinking about it, especially after George Michael, because that was one that hit me quite significantly as well, because I was a really big fan of his growing up, like the solo, especially the solo stuff. But it was just a really rough week in terms of celebrity stuff. I mean, it was a really nice week because obviously Christmas and family and all that sort of stuff, and that's always nice. But it was weird. It was unusual. I didn't really know how to feel at times. I think certain people thought I was going to be more emotional than I was. I'm a bit of a robot when it comes to this stuff. I process things very quickly in that respect. So I always come off a little bit unsympathetic. But I mean, I don't understand why people get so upset about certain things, but I'm not going to tell them they can't, you know? I just because I don't get it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's like, but yeah, I'm really kind of, the thing that I sort of saw as the upside is just the pure outpouring of good stories and good feelings and fantastic videos of her just being hilarious and stuff like that, which is always nice to see. Somebody shared, I don't know if you guys have almost certainly seen this at some point, if not recently, the one where she roasts George Lucas.
Yeah, I've heard these.
Man.
I've heard these stories. Yeah.
It's so good.
It's
so
good.
Yeah. But it's just, seeing that one again, having not seen it for years, was fantastic. Just reminds you of how witty
an
she was.
important part, though, of any mourning process is celebrating that person as much as you possibly can as well.
100%.
I actually really enjoyed that, and I had a good giggle.
Yeah, totally.
So actually, enough of this. This is the one thing Carrie would not want. She was actually a very bubbly personality.
Here.
And so let's celebrate this girl.
That's why I said to you when in our preamble before we recorded this evening, I was saying that I'm glad we didn't do this a week ago.
Yeah,
because
for sure. We'd have been.
This really hit me hard, losing her. And if we'd have done this a week ago, I don't know how much celebration I would have been able to do, because I was so saddened by the news. Yeah. And coming as it did at the end of this dreadful year for the loss of talented individuals.
Yeah,
it was just the last straw. But I'm grateful that the rest of the Commonwealth did incredible service to Carrie with the tributes that they paid to her on their podcasts. Lots of very measured, very respectful comments. I don't think I was in a place to do that last week because I was feeling a little bit too down about it. Yeah. But now I feel like when I started to consider this, and I knew that we'd be addressing it on the show, I was mulling it over. And, on the day I thought I'd never prepared myself for this. When I started Talk Star Wars, I never thought about losing one of the big three and having to deal with it.
True.
And thinking about how we process it. And what we do, I dedicated the homepage of Talk Star Wars to Carrie for a week. But then, beyond that, everything seems to be kind of empty. So I'd sat and, I'd written a requisite piece on the site to just sort of cover the basics, that she was gone and mention how important she was. And then I wrote a Star Wars Insights about her. And it's the Star Wars Insights that really made me think about how important Carrie Fisher was, not just, outside of Star Wars, incredibly important person, but in Star Wars, consider this is the discussion group we're in the midst of. She did a very important thing, and there's one scene in Star Wars that I picked out for that Insights, which was Han and Luke rescuing Leia.
Yes.
And I rewatched the film and I looked at it, I considered it, and I thought that's the moment. You see, there's a moment in time where a woman's part in a movie like this, in a boy's own action movie, is redefined by Carrie Fisher and the decisions that are made in that moment. And that's when Luke and Han are on that gantry fighting off the stormtroopers. They manage to get themselves cornered. And for a second, Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia, she's good to type. She is the damsel in distress, cowering behind Luke as she considers the situation she's in before she grabs his rifle and gets them out of trouble. She ends up saving the boys, the hapless boys that got them into that corner. She single-handedly changed the direction for the way women are viewed in films at that moment, in my opinion. And
I think that was a big step, if nothing. If it wasn't the the entirety of it, it's a huge push in that direction, wasn't it?
Absolutely. She was more than just wisecracking, more than just because that's what she was in life. She's
absolutely
razor sharp, finely tuned, intelligent, humorist, a raconteur. I heard someone refer to her as today. But at the heart of Star Wars, this is the woman that gave ladies back their power in this boys-only field, and I applaud her for that.
Yeah, big time.
I reached out to the other members of the Commonwealth just to see if they wanted to make a comment, and Rob Williams wrote something into us. Rob, I think you were going to read this.
Yes, I will read it. Rob wrote these touching words. I usually don't get upset or shaken when a celebrity passes away. I don't know who they truly are personally. I only know them through the character they portrayed on TV, in movies, or on stage. But when it came to Carrie Fisher, I was gutted. She was a face I grew up with. She was the first woman that did not play the stereotypical damsel in distress. She taught me that princesses can shoot a gun and not take any crap. Unfortunately, as an adolescent boy, I wasn't listening to that lesson as well as I should have. To me, she was only another actress who got caught up in the drugs and alcohol and the where are they now sections of the newspaper. I didn't truly appreciate how much of a badass she was in real life until my adult years. By discovering the numerous books she's written on Hollywood, her family, and facing up to her demons. The numerous writing credits and script doctoring on some of my favourite movies when Hollywood needed a woman's touch. With her HBO show, her interviews on TV, and most recent Celebration appearance. I feel I missed out on something special, and only now am I catching up. Carrie Fisher was a person who more boys should listen to. She's not your princess in a bikini, and she's not your salty old Auntie Carrie who just has no patience for censoring herself. The self-described product of celebrity inbreeding forces men to accept that women are allowed to be honest, loud, tough, crude, caring, vulnerable, and with faults. Just like men, they're perfectly imperfect, and it's time for the boys to recognise and accept it. Rob, Gen X-Wing.
Here.
Lovely stuff.
Wonderful sentiment.
Great, that was.
So, as sad as this is, I think, Paul, you are absolutely right. Carrie's life is worth celebrating, and we are going to take that forward for the rest of this show as we enjoy what we normally do, as we discuss the franchise that she breathed such indelible life into. The only thing left to say is, rest in peace, Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds. You'll both be deeply, deeply missed. All right, let's get back into the normal structure of the show. We're going to jump into our announcement section, which has something really quite wonderful off the back of that heart-breaking section there. And I'm going to put this right at the top. Our new host, our new family member, Mr. Rob Cast of Roman Podcast fame, has just had, after like an almost 2-week delay, a bouncing baby girl at 7 pounds 9 ounces. So we just wanted to congratulate Rob for the arrival of his youngling, as he puts it, Charlie.
Here.
Congratulations, Mr. Cast. Her name is Charlie.
Charlie. Oh,
wonderful stuff. I'm so relieved. They've been waiting a very long time for this baby to show up.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Rob, and our love to yourself and to your family.
Okay.
All right, quick reminder about our sponsors. Blue Harvest Vintage are offering a 10% discount on orders when you tell them that we sent you. So head to facebook.com/Blue Harvest Vintage Collectibles or follow at Blue Harvest UK on Twitter. Find out more information about the products they have on offer over there. Our little network has grown somewhat in the downtime over the holidays. So our YouTube channel has picked up several subscribers. So Rafanza Abdul Rifa, Moderately Informed. I'm going to say Relly, even though this is R3LI.
Really?
And it could be really. And Troy Foote. Troy is host of The Nerd Room, co-host with Tim. One of our Star Wars Commonwealth shows. They've all subscribed to the YouTube channel this week, or these past couple of weeks, so thank you very much for that, everybody. Our Facebook page has grown as well to include Idiots Array, the Idiots Array podcast.
I know them, yeah.
And Alan Zorg from the Idiots Array podcast as well.
Nice.
So
welcome.
Great. Thank you for jumping onto there. And I just wanted to say a quick note about something I put up on the website this week. I posted a pretty bold Star Wars theory just after New Year, and all I've got from that post so far is positive feedback and really supportive messages. I know sometimes these things can ruffle a lot of feathers, and people take that as an opportunity to jump up and down on the writer. But this one was greeted with nothing but love. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that took the time to send me a message over that. Looks like the internet has set a New Year's resolution not to be a complete tool for a change. Reviews. We've got one lovely review. Don't forget you can take advantage of our Ron Burgundy policy, which means that if you leave us a 5-star review in iTunes, I'll read it verbatim. So if you want to promote something, maybe it's a podcast or a blog, that's where to do it. The only rule is no hate speak or profanity, please, because we are a family show. So we got a 5-star review from our friend Rob Cast, who we just mentioned. There's no backhanders going on here. This is genuine.
It's the review reach around, as they call it. It is,
yeah, on their show, yeah. So Rob's written gold star and then 5 stars. Quite simply, one of the best Star Wars podcasts out there today. The Star Wars discussion is insightful, honest, and very engaging. After the first listen, the show will definitely make it into your listening rotation. So thank you for that, Mr. Cast. Everyone else needs to jump in there and try and beat that 5-star review. Thank you. Now we can get straight into listener comms and have a bit of fun with some of these messages we've had from people. You can send us questions and comments via Twitter, Facebook, or send us an email, include an MP3 as a voicemail, to starwarsinfo@gmail.com. That's starwarsinfo@gmail.com. And you can get your voice onto the show. And we're going to start with our dear friend James over at Tumbling Saber with a voicemail this week.
Good evening, guys. James here from the Tumbling Saber. My question coming out of a very, very cold Montreal, Canada this week. So cold it's colder than a testy polar bear. Actually, so cold it might be colder than a polar bear's testes. But I digress. And I'll get on to my question out of the deep freeze. My question is about, what else? Rogue One. I think we all agree in the Commonwealth. Terrific movie. Excellent storytelling on a never-before-seen scale in the GFFA. But it has reframed some things in A New Hope. And I'm wondering what you guys think of the fact that it's reframed the last scene where Luke is the one who makes the shot that makes it all the way down the vent shaft and blows up the Death Star. I mean, I love how they retconned the flaw in the Death Star and made it a specific design by Galen. But it seems like maybe it demystifies what Luke, as the Chosen One or the Chosen One's offspring, was able to do. It seemed like only a super force-sensitive pilot with exceptional skill could make that shot. And maybe that's still the case, but I'm wondering if this changes the feel of that scene for you. Looking forward to your thoughts. Have another terrific show. Ho, 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 and Merry Christmas. Long live the Commonwealth.
Needless to say, that message came in around about Christmas. So, isn't it? James doesn't live in some strange parallel.
Let's do it all again.
Yeah, let's do it all again. And so what do we think about James's comments then? Does this reframe Luke's heroic efforts at the end of A New Hope?
A little bit.
Nah, I don't know.
I'm glad we agreed. So
Yeah.
They were all. That's all. Every colour of an opinion there, aren't they? Paul, let's start with you.
I just gonna say a little bit because I kind of like it does. I think it adds a little sort of credit cards with more romance to it. To be completely honest with you, because we've got this little farm boy, stuck out in the BFB sort of thing, and for him to be the one that ends up doing it based on the fact that his sister was given the plans, X thousand light years up in the sky and so on and so forth. I liked it a little more for it. I'm not a fan of the whole retcon thing, but they did really knock it out of the park with the design fault because we're all like, oh yeah, who did that? Sort of thing. So I really, really like that. So knowing about the intentional fault and a little bit, I think it added a bit more romance to it, But then again, it's almost faultless in every way as far as I'm concerned, Rogue One, and anyone says otherwise, just stupid. End of.
Okay, Rob, you seem to occupy a bit of the mid-ground there. What's your take on this?
He's the politician of the bunch. That's the
the trouble with these fences are comfy.
Must be very wide.
Yeah, all right.
It's been Christmas. He's carrying a little extra holiday weight.
Great minds. Yeah, funny enough, actually, I heard them talk about it on Tumbling Saber on their latest episode, and I had a bit of a back and forth with them on Twitter about this. I don't think it makes a lick of difference whatsoever because it is still an incredibly hard shot to pull off. So I don't think it changes anything. And actually, I pointed out something to them because they seemed pretty adamant that it reframed it, and I said, "Well, what made you think from the way he described the flaw that he knew they were going to use starfighters?" Because the way he described it, as I recall, sounded like it could have easily just been an infiltration team or a sabotage mission or some sort of bombardment from, a capital ship that get a lucky shot in or something.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't describe it in a detail that said to me, you have to fly X-Wings down this thing. Because also he's not going to necessarily know what their capabilities are in terms of what their ships and stuff can do because he's been working on this project. That's all he's been focused on.
Yeah, and he's not military either, is he?
No, exactly.
He's purely a scientist.
He's a scientist. His job is to make the kyber crystals respond to something other than the Force to make them agitate.
Mm-hmm.
From Catalyst, as I recall.
Yeah. I think we're going to swing back round to that exhaust vent in a minute, Rob.
All right.
Because I've just finished the novelisation, so there might be a few bits.
Oh, I'm working my way through that.
Okay.
Man. Yeah, we'll talk about it in a bit more depth in a few.
Okay. Steve?
I'm with Rob. In fact, I'm the other way. I think it is better now because I always thought before how stupid it was that they had the hole there. Why would you put a hole there? And then a trench leading up to it with a big arrow saying, shoot this and blow this thing up.
Yeah.
It's so much better now. And to me, it doesn't matter whether he put it there deliberately or they accidentally architected it into the Death Star. It's still there. Somebody's got to
Did
shoot.
you say architected?
The new word.
Yeah.
Hashtag architected.
I'm having it.
I'm having that.
I'm
It's
just
fine.
emailing that to Collins right now.
OED.
I never said I was a good lexicographer, Paul. So anyway, so I think it's better now because it makes sense. Although obviously they need to now cover the problem that why would you fly down a trench with loads of guns shooting at you and you lose Porkins and loads of other people when you could literally fly perpendicular to the Death Star and shoot right down the hole. But that's another story.
I think I had a thought on this actually because again, this one came up on the podcast. I think there's an element of there might be less chance of getting hit by a turbo laser.
There's an issue with shields as well, isn't there?
Well, there is that, yeah. But I'm thinking they still have turbo lasers in the trench, but not nearly as many as are on the surface. So I reckon it's.
I think they're under the shields when they're in the trench.
Okay.
They break through the shields, but they can't.
An altitude.
They can't fire perpendicular because they can't get through the energy shields. They can fly through the shields, and then when they're under the shield, they can fire at the target, but they can't fire through the shields at the target. I think that's
Did you
kind
just
of.
make that up, or have you got?
I bet
proof?
Ray could.
I don't make anything. Sorry, Steve, you're breaking up. They're going to cut that out. Yeah. But
How convenient.
Steve, James' specific concern, as I understand it, I mean, maybe I'm getting this wrong. He's concerned that this is diminishing Luke's final shot. That the fact that the smaller exhaust port was placed as a fuse, essentially, to blow up the Death Star, does that diminish the efforts of Luke and the influence that the Force had on Luke at that time to take that shot? Because we know now that that's a fuse that's just there to be lit.
Well, we've been here before, haven't we? And if the Force wills it, then it's part of the story. This is how the Force wanted it. So it's part of that whole Force story still, even though it was deliberately designed into the Death Star, architected into it.
I am gonna buy that on this. I usually don't like that because I see that as a cop out, but it was definitely at work through Luke in a way that it didn't work through sort of Gold Leader, and it didn't work through the Y bombers. They couldn't do
I was going to say
anything. So it did really
Negative. It just impacted on the surface.
The thing to bear in mind is he still hit a target of under 2 meters at speed with proton torpedoes when it's ray shielded, which is everybody else is saying is impossible.
Yeah,
So it's still
like fake wedge.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
and it's a Womp Rat's bigger than that, and he used to bullseye them back home. So
yeah, exactly.
because he used to murder small animals, because there's something wrong with a boy. But just to come back to how this...
He's dead.
He's now got someone in a well.
It's clearly about the...
We're having a nature-nurture discussion
about
Vader.
Puts the blue milk on its skin or it gets the lightsaber again. Rob, are you that far in the novelisation yet where they talk about how the exhaust port got installed?
No,
because I don't want to spoil it for you.
That's fine. I've just got to a point where
they've
just got off Jeddah. They've just got off Jeddah.
Guys, you don't read it. This is only about me and Rob.
They're between Jeddah and Diadu on where I'm in the book.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'll tell you what. I tweeted the author Alexander Freed to say good job, because I didn't think it was possible to get darker than Rogue One cinematic cut, but he managed it.
Yeah.
Because there's a bit, it's not really a spoiler, is it? Because it's
well, if it's so close to the movie. It can't really be that spoiled.
But it puts into light things that you wouldn't have thought about. It's like, you thought that girl got away safe because Jin saved her. Lol, no.
Yeah.
And there's a little scene where she gets vaporized.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Oh man.
That is a bit harsh. It doesn't wander so far away from the Rogue One movie to be all that revelatory in some of its exposition. There are these little bits and pieces where they sort of read out emails, if you like, between some of the principals. A lot of Mon Mothma emails, and
I read there's a lot of admin in it.
Yeah, all of the exhaust port stuff is done in that format. So when I first started hearing this is an excerpt from such and such a log, I thought, what's this? I'm not sure I like this. This is like too Star Trek to me. It's too much like Captain's log. But then I realised why they were doing it. It was setting up that framework so they could tell you just how clever Galen was with the exhaust port, because it made it look like everybody else's idea. And he'd managed to hide like the requisition order and the upgrade and the threat. He'd managed to hide it all in the bureaucracy of the Empire, which I thought was just ingenious. It wasn't just like he commissioned this thing to be installed.
Yeah.
It was this huge Machiavellian effort on his part to make everybody else make the decision for him. I thought it was really well done, really clever. But in short, I'm with you guys. I don't think that it diminishes Luke's efforts in the trench run at all, because I think it's quite clear at that point that the only way that... Did you hear that?
Vaguely.
That's my echo. I got an Echo Dot for Christmas, and it's just responding to something I've said.
Oh, man. I'll tell you a story in the After Dark side about that.
Yeah. Okay. We'll come back to that in the After Dark side. Yeah, I don't think it diminishes Luke's efforts at all. I think it's quite clear from that story, it's quite clear for all the sacrifices that are made leading up to the moment of that Death Star's destruction, that you need somebody skilled in more than just being a pilot to be able to pull that thing off. And that's what he did. So, no, I'm with you. I don't think it diminishes it. I still enjoy it. I watched the film recently, just after my third sitting at Rogue One, and they just complement each other so well. Wonderful. Right. Paul's just ducked out for a second. I don't think it'll be long. Let's move on. Thank you for the voicemail, James. Let's move on to this question from Roku Depot on Twitter. So this is a tweet from @Roku Depot. Should Revenge of the Sith get a special edition with the new CGI Tarkin in place of the horrible-looking Tarkin prosthetics? So this is a very targeted question, of course, targeted to one point, but in my breakdown there I've put, might we get special editions of the prequels, or indeed the OT, that drops in this new technique for the older films?
Oh, Tarkin's not close enough up in that thing.
No, it's not worth it. It's not. He's
it's
barely
incidental.
On. Yeah, it's one of those blink and you'll miss it, even to be Tarkin in the first place. So I don't think I picked up on it the first time.
I never knew it was Tarkin. No, it's until you said it, Rob, or Mark. I can't remember now.
Yeah, I think it was either a few minutes after it happened. I thought back and went, "Oh, I guess that was Tarkin." But
I think they should work on the Tarkin, the new Tarkin first.
You might get that. You might get that wish by the time of the Blu-ray, Steve.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Never know.
It's almost there. It's almost there. Just a little tiny little tweak.
It's 98% of the way there.
I think it's great.
I'm happy to give it a pass. Paul,
I'm happy to leave it.
you were away from the mic for this question. This tweet from Roku
Apologies.
Depot. Should Revenge of the Sith get a special edition with new CGI Tarkin to replace the horrible-looking Tarkin prosthetics in that movie?
Simple answer, no, but it might do.
Yeah, you think there's a chance?
There's a chance with anything now. I mean, if they can literally, because all they're going to be doing is digitizing, one section.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a chance they can just, re-push the product out and say, by the way, that bit, let's put it through some digital editing machine. Pop, 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 done. We can farm that out. Let's do 300,000 copies, see how it goes. But I'd say
it's possible.
Yeah, it shouldn't happen, but there's a chance it might.
I agree. It's definitely possible.
Aren't they trying to move away from all these films now? The prequels, though, really.
No, you
Draw
said
a
they're
line
going to
under
remake
them.
them.
Well, I reckon they should remake them, but that's another story.
I don't want them to change anything about the Lucas stuff. Go back and do any of that stuff. I don't want them to do it. That's something I've been really happy they haven't done. They've reframed stuff and they've retconned a little bits and pieces, but they haven't fundamentally altered any of the original established canon or any of the films. And I like it that way, and I want it to stay that way.
I in absolute agreement with you there, Rob. I don't think they should, because I think it would be an insult to George. I don't think they should do it because I think it would also be, whether it's intended this way or not, it would also register as a con, because we keep dipping our hands in our pockets to buy these films on multiple platforms. Yeah. I've got endless copies of all these movies on VHS. I've got DVDs and Blu-rays, and now I've got digital versions in iTunes. When 4K comes out, I've no doubt I'll rebuy them. I don't want them to start tinkering with these films just to be able to resell them. I think the moment they pop one of these films open and change something, I'm going to start to question whether or not they're in the right hands. If they leave them alone now and just move forward, they can do what they like with The Force Awakens. And they can move forward and do what they like with Rogue One. If they want to refine it or change it, I'll be happy for them to do that because they've created it. But they need to leave George's creations alone. Sorry, Steve.
Right, Box Office Mojo.
Yes.
That include DVDs, Blu-rays, etc.?
No.
I was going to say, because why isn't Star Wars number one?
Yeah.
With what you just said. I guess it would be if you include all that revenue, right?
It probably would. It does. The worldwide box office does include the theatrical re-releases. So it has a lot of bites of that cherry.
Editions.
Yeah. And I would hate to see them even bring one of these movies back, alter them in some way and release them theatrically just to fine-tune their box office numbers. I really don't want to see any of that. I want us to play above board now.
In the next 10 years, the way they do the revenues from these films is probably change along with the way that we view them, because it's not going to be at the cinema anymore, is it, in the long term? When you can buy the movie at home for 30 quid and invite all your mates around or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. There's still that event, that sort of marquee nature of going and seeing it. Like, because we were all talking about doing it at the end of the month, aren't we? All the TSW crew going to go and see Rogue One together. And, we could easily say, well, let's just wait another month and then we'll all come around my house and watch it on the Blu-ray. Well, there's a thing about going and watching it with an audience of hundreds of people and sharing that experience. Because I saw it. I don't know if
invite them all round.
I'm not going to invite them all round, no. Maybe 60.
Such a meanie.
I don't know if it was you that told me or Andy, Mark, about this. They are trialling it, aren't they? Or they're looking at
it does exist,
film. Yeah. And on the day that it would have been released in the cinema. So it seems to be kind of weird.
I can't remember the name of the service at the moment, but I do remember them speaking about it on Collider Heroes, maybe on Collider Video, maybe 6 months or so ago, when they were talking about, this thing will come out and it's like a subscription service, so you'll be able to book the film, and if you want as many people in your house as possible, you'll get the film streamed to that one location, and you can all just sit there and watch it. And
they reckon that it's going to be uncopyable, but I reckon that's rubbish, because you've only got to set a video camera up, haven't you? A high definition video camera.
When they say uncopyable, they just invite more problems than they need. What they should say is it's going to be the hardest copy protection the toughest to crack we've ever had.
Yeah.
And leave it at that, because every time they say it's uncrackable, You just get a certain group of people, certain very dedicated group of special people who just say challenge accepted.
Yeah, the problem
you seem
is
to know a lot about these people, Rob.
I spend a lot of time in CD locations, Paul.
the issue
Buying CDs, yeah.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah,
How else am I supposed to get my
lucky.
cheap?
The thing is with the security on these prints now, it's not just going to be about trying to make them difficult to copy, but it'll be about lacing in identifiers. So if a copy breaks out, there will be fallout for the person that's rented it. So if you do video cam it, they'll be able to stop it and take information out of every frame and realise who it belongs to.
We had when I used to work in a cinema, we had somebody from FACT come in. So that's a Federation Against Copyright Theft in the UK, for those who aren't familiar. And they came in and explained how the tech worked. It was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Yeah,
and it's often with theatrical piracy. It's often the audio is sourced somewhere else. And the video is sourced
at a different point.
And then you can take one video and you can apply different regions' audio release. So if you can have a foreign language over an English print, you can have the audio from a foreign language theatre where it's just been recorded separately. There are ways to trace all this stuff now. And if you're going to spend money renting a movie in your home instead of going to the theatre, I don't think you're going to take the chance that you'll leak that and get yourself prosecuted.
Maybe. Well, some people will probably take the chance, but I think you're right. It might deter a few people.
Even if you record it just for yourself, so you can watch it more than once. That's the kind of thing I'm looking at. Not me personally, but that's the kind of thing I think people would do, because they otherwise. You know what I mean? It'd be nice to watch the video that you've just loved, watch the cinema release you've just loved, and then watch it straight away again, like we wanted to do with Rogue One.
There is a certain amount of... I mean, that's kind of a bigger question, isn't it? Because for me, that sort of part of that comes down to a sort of, I just paid for a rental, but I should be able to watch it as many times as I want. It's like, well, no, that's not how renting works. But, it's... Yeah, I think, especially now with the digital age, where you can tie things to an identity very easily in terms of a customer ID. The piracy stuff's going to be much more, like Mark said, it's going to be much more targeted, much more designed at this is not just like this is this cinema in this town. They're going to be able to say it's this person and this is the address we got for him.
And that they're going to execute that, and they're going to do it very publicly and with extreme prejudice because they want to send a message.
Unless somebody nicks your piggybacks your signal, and when they take it from the stream, and you have no knowledge that it's actually happened.
Yeah,
there'd still be a record of you logging in somewhere else, though, wouldn't there?
I don't know if you'll be able to do it. I think that is what.
No, what I mean is that somebody else sitting outside your house takes the stream.
But I don't think you'll be able to do that, Steve, because I think we're going to end up talking about files that are way too big for you to process. You're not going to be able to rip that down onto a DVD or a thumb drive.
Okay.
You're going to be talking about massive amounts of data that's going to need to be compressed in a certain way. You probably need key decryption media to get these things to play. So, there's a lot of stuff here, but I think we've gotten a little bit off topic. With regard to these movies being tinkered with and re-released, I don't think that'll happen.
I really hope not.
Okay, Roku Depot, thank you for your question.
Yes.
Thank you for your tweet.
That's your little question,
Yeah, little question that took us off. We always do this, don't we? We always want to milk it.
I don't.
Okay, we got this. This came in at the last moment last night. And Ed said, can you squeeze this in the show? Of course I can squeeze it in the show. There's always room for a night of the Commonwealth. So this is a voicemail from Ads.
Evening, lads. Happy New Year to one and all. I hope you all had a really good one. So just a quick question this week, and it relates to the Star Wars characters, the 3 3/4 inch action figures that my two boys have been playing with continuously throughout the holiday period. So which are your favourite ones? And perhaps which of the multiple versions of Luke and Han and Leia, bless her, would you choose as your favourite? Look forward to hearing. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.
Right, Star Wars action figures. Doesn't need to be the modern ones. Let's go back to the vintage stuff, because I know we probably all owned those in abundance, didn't we, as kids?
Yeah.
Favourites?
And Speeder Biker for me. The trooper in the forest. I forget what they're called now. Speeder Biker, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a scout bike rider, right?
Scouts, yeah.
This is what Paul,
Love those.
Steve, and our friend Andy, you got that for me for my birthday last year, didn't you? The Black Series 6-inch
Yes.
speeder bike
one of us
on the
did.
bike. That's amazing. Pride of place that is in my collection. I love that to death. Yeah, that is a cool one. Good pick, Steve. Rob?
I had the Kenner 1997 reissues primarily in terms of figures I bought new, because all the stuff I had when it came to the older series was all boot fair stuff. Mm-hmm. We used to go trawling. It was a really nice, one of those fond memories I retain as a kid of me and my dad going trawling around boot fairs looking for Star Wars figures, hoping that somebody might have something cool and not necessarily know what they had so we get it cheaper. But the figure that sticks in my head is the Vader from the Kenner series, because he was hench. Absolutely. It was like Rogue One hench, absolutely enormous. And that was true and a bit jarring of all the characters. It was like even Ben Kenobi would have been, or Luke was enormous. It was like he'd been spending all his time on Tatooine wailing on his delts.
It's a great term. The thing is that brought those action figures more in line with the characters we saw on the poster in the 70s.
Yeah,
because they looked like that in the 70s. He looked like He-Man, didn't he, in that wonderful illustrated poster? Yeah, good choice, because the Vader I had from the Kenner range was anything but a hinge. It was this svelte little thing, looked like a slug. Paul, favourite Kenner action figure?
Hoth Han.
That was
it was almost a dolly to me.
Oh, it was a good one. Yeah,
it's fantastic. That was my choice also, Paul.
Oh, cool.
I absolutely love that.
I really like the Jedi Luke as well. The black outfit Luke from Jedi, and that was again that was good in it no matter what. I wasn't really a massive fan of the way they did the lightsabers in the original action figures with the little tube that went up their arm.
Yes, yeah.
But in the new ones, they had detachable accessories and stuff, so you could let your imagination go nuts, and you could have, you could do an alternate reality where Han was force sensitive and whatever you wanted.
Yeah. That Han Solo figure from Hoth, I thought was great with the little, because the Han figures always used to have one arm up, didn't it? Like he was shooting from the hip. So when you and that even had that in the Hoth version. I don't think he even used his gun on Hoth, did he? Or he shot the probot, I guess.
Did he shoot the probe, or did Chewie do it?
Well, I think he did both.
He shot at it a couple of times, and then Chewie blew it up with the bowcaster. Yeah.
That's right.
That's awesome. Great
That's
question.
interesting, isn't it? Maybe Chewie didn't get lucky with that shot and blow up an explosive. Maybe that's the strength of the bowcaster, which we only really saw in The Force Awakens.
Maybe. No, they did say it might have been a self-destruct as well, didn't they?
Han had a line of dialogue that said he didn't hit it that hard. It had self-destruct. It blew itself up because it knew it was in for it.
There's a deleted scene where they go, what about Chewie? He said, he mullered it. Yeah.
What, the dog?
Now I think about it. Yeah, now you think about it, probably you're right, actually.
Dog's like, I didn't even get a medal.
Chewie's outside attached to his leg.
Maybe it's because Han said Chewie didn't even hit it that hard that Chewie never let him hold the boltcaster again until Episode 7.
Yeah,
never knew how good it was.
And then
if I recall, didn't the original Chewie figure have this really long, weird rifle with a wraparound sort of?
Wrapped over his arm, didn't it?
It was nothing like the bowcaster at all.
It didn't have the it didn't have the bow thing across the front. The original Kenner thing.
It was just this long kind. It was almost like a crutch.
Here's the thing I find weird. Have you guys followed the action figures that they release now?
No.
Not really. No, not very closely.
Every single one. I don't know why this is. Every single one comes with an additional.
Oh yeah.
Bit of armor,
jetpack or something.
Yeah. There's a Kylo Ren. It's like, why does he need one?
You know what it is, Rob? They're actually like little pieces of. Is it Voltron?
Yeah.
And then when you've bought enough collections, this thing comes together as like this robot and kills you in your sleep.
It's what puts me off buying the standard Krennic rather than the Black Series one, because he comes with this whacking great piece of armor that just doesn't fit.
Just throw it away.
Yeah, I could do.
If you're going to take them out of the pack, you'll never see that thing again.
How much is a figure now?
They vary quite wildly. I mean, I've seen them as some of the ones from Force Awakens the nearest shop to me is Forbidden Planet to my work, so I go up there a fair bit to have a wander around, and they range anywhere from sort of for the standard figures, it's like from a 5 to 10.
I remember when they were 99p.
Black Series are sort of 20, 25 quid, depending on which size you go for. And then they've got these enormous ones that go on a piece of card about the size of a pinboard. Have you seen those?
Yeah, these the jumbo Kenner things.
Yeah.
I'll
find a...
I'm looking at one now.
Yeah, they're enormous. They're absolutely enormous. They are so the
big.
figure's 12 inches. God,
we're juvenile.
Hey, people know what they get. People know what they get from me. I'm the same everywhere I go.
All right, that's great. Ads, I think you might want to stick close to the articles that Mark from Blue Harvest are putting out on the site, because he's putting out some great stuff. That guy knows.
They're great.
He knows his stuff, doesn't he?
I hope so. He's got a shop.
Yeah, the breakdown of all the weapons that come in the packs.
Yeah, that's the one.
Really fascinating stuff. I'm liking these a lot. Every 2 weeks something will come out. Okay, let's move on. Thanks for that, Ads. Let's move on to this question from Tim at the Nerd Room, another Star Wars Commonwealth podcast. Steve, would you like to take this?
Sure. Hey guys, really enjoying the podcast and couldn't resist firing a question your way. I'm not sure if you have explored this in the past, but with the critical and financial success of Rogue One, solidifying the anthology films as staples in the new era of Star Wars, I'd love to hear your thoughts on future anthology standalone films. What sort of films would you like to see Lucasfilm take a shot at in the future? Which EU, Old Republic or established era stories do you think would translate best onto the big screen? Lastly, how do you think audiences will receive a non-linear film franchise, as we are used to seeing films that progressively build off of each other, brackets the MCU, with a forward progressing narrative? Long live the SWC, Star Wars Commonwealth. Tim, the Nerd Room podcast, thank you very much. Breakdown. Will we be returning to this question at time and again? Oh, it's yours, Mark.
Yeah, this is my... We will be returning to this question time and again, because, like Rob's fond of saying, every podcast is somebody's first podcast. So there'll be people that come in that haven't listened to the previous 53 episodes and are now just interested in our point of view on these things. So even though we've covered this, and I'm finding that my opinion on these standalone movies is changing. And now that I've seen one really work, the options seem to be opening up to me. So we will be returning to this question, I'm sure. But Steve, carry on with the breakdown, mate.
No, that's all right. In light of recent developments, is there anything new on your mind for Star Wars story entries? And do we think audiences will accept stories told in different timeframes, stroke orders? I mean, my one's very quick on this. I agree with you, what you said about Rogue One. But I think it was successful. And we said this before because it was a perfect filling of an awesome Star Wars sandwich that we already knew about. And
good way of putting it.
Yeah, you didn't have to. It just felt right because you knew the bread either side. Whereas it's going to be a lot harder for me, I think, to believe in and take up on the new standalone films, especially as the next one's Han Solo and Harrison Ford is obviously Han Solo in our minds. Very difficult. I think it's going to be, if they can pull that off, then I'll never question it again.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that.
Last word, Steve.
Yeah, isn't it?
Paul, your opinion on these Star Wars story spin-offs?
Bring them on, all of them.
Yeah, anything you
except for Boba Fett. Actually, I know what film I want to see now.
Go for it.
I want to know how the Immaculate Conception happened.
Okay, so we're looking.
Well, you actually want to watch it?
I want the storyline that builds up to Anakin's becoming.
So
basically,
Plagueis, Sidious.
Yeah, the whole thing. Which is her name Shmi? Always forget.
Shmi, yeah, Shmi Skywalker.
Yeah, I want to know how that. I want the build up on that one.
That'd be great.
I think that could be fascinating, and you're going to see a lot of Dark Lord stuff as well. So It's my idea.
I
Can
like
you
that,
please
Paul.
put speech marks around that now? And Lucasfilm can give me millions later.
That
public domain.
that period, I don't know if I'd given much thought to that period being covered in these films, but that's a great idea.
Aren't they never going to go back though? Isn't that one thing they kind of allude to?
No,
is
I
that
don't
they're
know.
never going to go back.
Well, they're kind of going back with Solo, so
They are. I think.
Yeah,
you know,
but they're not back before episode 3 or before.
No, I think they might actually, Steve. And this is why I was, when you said that Rogue One is the filling of this perfect Star Wars sandwich that we're all familiar with, I totally agree with you. And I think what they did with this film is, and I've been beating this drum for a while now, that they had to be very careful and get this absolutely right, because they're introducing a new paradigm to us as Star Wars audiences. We need to understand what these films are, what function they're performing. And with Rogue One, they took a half step away from the franchise just to try it out. And Han Solo might be the full step away. They're moving a significant amount of time away from the Star Wars saga. And so maybe the next movie, which hopefully won't be Boba Fett, maybe the next movie will take an even larger step away and maybe step into time before the prequel trilogy, or maybe just after the prequel trilogy, Vader's Jedi Purge, which might be if I'm not allowed to use Obi-Wan, which I've kind of put that sort of restriction on myself in this question, I would say I'd be interested in seeing a Vader Purge and seeing some more of this awesome Vader stuff that we saw at the end of Rogue One. Rob, what about you, mate?
Oh, God, yeah, I'll wait for Rob. Go on, Rob.
That's fine, Steve. Go ahead, mate.
I was going to say, with that in mind, because I was reading earlier about how they did originally have a crawl for Rogue One, and also we're going to do the wipes. Is that what they're called, wipes? I guess it is, isn't it?
Yeah, the wipes were present in an original version.
Yeah, and then they gave them free sort of reign to do what they liked, and so they did. But I think that only worked because of the nature of this movie. I think if you're going back to the mythology and the lore of Star Wars with the type of films we've just discussed, it's even more important that you bed it in a strong Star Wars foundation and have those things in there. I think they got away with it this one because it's already in the crawl of A New Hope, isn't it? So you don't really need the crawl because it's that top bit. But
well, that's the story of Rogue One, isn't it? That's in that top bit. But what the function of the crawl would be to bring you up to speed. So from frame one, you're present in the story and you understand what's at stake. Now, we didn't get that with Rogue One. Well, the people that hadn't read Catalyst didn't get that with Rogue One. Fortunately, I'd read Catalyst, so I went in sort of armed with an understanding about Galen's relationship to Krennic and what was at stake. The opening crawl had a function in that movie, and it should have been to bring everybody up to speed with what that relationship was, and then we drop into the story and we move forward. They took that away as a stylistic choice to separate the Star Wars story from the saga stories, and I think that was the film's biggest mistake, because it failed to allow people to go into that first frame with an understanding of what was on the table. We got that with A New Hope. We knew Leia was racing home with the plans to the Death Star. It told us that. So when you see Vader board that ship, we're thinking, oh my God, she's been caught. And now we know when she's lying to Vader, we know she's lying. Imagine if you take that crawl away from A New Hope.
We knew we learned that anyway, didn't we, later on? But this kind of cements it beforehand.
Yeah, you're out.
I guess it reframes that, actually.
You're out in front of the story, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because you know then, when she's telling Vader, this is a consular ship, and you're attacking me and I'm an ambassador, I'm doing diplomatic stuff.
He's like, do me a lemon, mate.
Yeah. Stop mugging me off. And she's standing her ground, but we know she's lying. Because we're ahead of the story because of that opening crawl.
I assume she was lying when I was 8 years old.
Yeah, well, like I say, if nothing else, you learn it over the course of the film, don't you? Because, She
was lying about Dantooine as well.
There you go.
Yeah.
also,
but there had been a rebel base there.
Can I throw something out there, though?
Go on.
You don't get a crawl in Temple of Doom. You don't get a crawl in Star Trek New Frontier. You don't get a crawl with all these trilogies and multi-series and the Marvel Galaxies
Star Wars,
and everything
isn't
else.
You don't
You
get
don't
whites
need
in those films because they'd look
It's
awful.
a standalone film. They told everyone it's a standalone film.
Listen,
it doesn't need
if you are going to bring impenetrable reason to this podcast, we are not going to be able to move forward. Stop making cogent arguments, for the love of
Speak
God.
for yourself.
That's my job.
Also, the crawl makes you excited for what's to come.
No,
You're
it
like,
doesn't.
oh my God, this is going to be an awesome
Doesn't.
film.
Since I
It
was
did-
8, I didn't read that crawl when I went to the cinema. I
you
don't
couldn't
think I
read
read
till
the
you was
Empire
30.
one. I don't think I read the Jedi one, and I didn't read any of the first 3. I've never read the damn thing properly. Do you know
I
that?
think we should hung, draw, and quarter you for saying that.
Wow.
I just find it gets in the way of the entire film. Give me action now.
I would like to think,
Oh
I can
my.
see a vote coming here, but I would like to think you are in the vast minority. No, I lost the last crawl.
That's not how minorities work. They can't be vast.
No, well, yes.
They can be fast.
You are,
I think you
I'd
mean
like to
overwhelming minority.
Yeah, the overwhelming minority. I would like to think that most people who are avid Star Wars fans, would see a lot of tradition and love for those crawls.
I get the
would have
tradition and the
till
love from the
Rogue One.
characters and the story. Don't need a bunch of words scrolling up the screen to make me feel any better.
I'm
about
beginning to
them.
get the feeling that there's no right or wrong answer here, and I think
No, yes, there is.
both sides are
Here we go.
Can I mute one person at a time on this guy? Both sides I think are valid. And Paul, I think your experience, if you're not reading those opening crawls, your experience of the film from frame one is going to be very different to mine. And I can't imagine not reading those crawls. I can't imagine watching that.
I read them and I know what they say.
I'd be worried about the following along and getting on Leia's side in that opening scene of A New Hope if I didn't know that she was lying. She was lying to that huge, towering, black armour-clad villain. If I had to wonder whether or not she was being falsely accused or if she was lying, I'd want to be out in front of that from the start so I know who I'm cheering for. Fine, she's in white, so I know I'm cheering for her.
Let's go a bit old and traditional now. Little vulnerable ship being chased by enormous planet shooting at it.
Again, with the impenetrable reason.
I can work out pretty well, even when I'm 7 or 8 years old, who might be the bad guy here.
Yeah. No,
Who's delivering the light lines? Oh, the 2 robots. Who's tall, really dark and scary? Oh, that guy. It kind of told its own story straight away.
It does tell it visually, and I should listen to my own words because I said that's something that George did extremely well. Visual indicators on screen in Star Wars have always been very good for letting you know who these characters are, where they are, and what their motivations are. So no, you're right. Points to you.
You heard that, everyone. I'm right.
I'm cutting that out. No one's going to hear it. Cut it in floor. Rob,
Yes.
A Star Wars story choice from you, please, sir.
I'm going to do 3 really quick ones. I'm not going to expand on them. I'm just going to say things and their concepts that are clear enough anyway. The Lost 20.
Oh, nice.
The second
That's
one.
that's about the guy that dropped a lot of weight after Christmas, yeah? Because he stopped eating miniature heroes and he lost 20 pounds.
That's 40,
the
isn't
one.
it?
Yeah.
I can't remember the third one. And Darth Bane.
Hmm.
Darth Bane is one of those legends things that he's still canon because he's in Clone Wars, but I really want them to revisit that story because he's great.
So that sort of service is part of Tim's question that wasn't in the breakdown, which is which EU, Old Republic, or established era stories would you think best translate?
Yeah,
to the
I
big
think
screen?
the Bane. I think you could probably condense it down into a single film because it's a trilogy of books, but I think it could still work as a single film.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least if they redid the story. I think certainly the first book is very cinematic when you're reading it.
Okay, yeah, no, I think I'm getting messages from Paul saying Jawa movie. Don't think I agree with that. But yeah, I like what you're thinking about jumping that far back and setting up, like showing the origins of the Sith would be awesome. But bearing in mind what we just said about Rogue One being a half step away from Star Wars, Han Solo being a 4-step, I don't see us getting back to that era for quite some time. But I'd like them to go there.
Yeah.
Also think there's room to tell a Star Wars Rebel story on the big screen.
Yeah, I could see that. Do you know what? I could see that as a one-off animated movie.
I would like to see it live action.
I think they could, but I just think the people they'd invite less in the way of criticism if they just did the the animated version, just because obviously Clone Wars had that. Admittedly, I think was it the movie first?
It was, in 2008, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds right. In a similar way, they could do Rebels, but the other way around. Plus, they've already got all the voice actors.
They've got all the... But look at those guys. I think they could all perform those roles in live action without any problem at all.
Really? Because I think Stephen Stanton might disagree. That guy's some kind of sorcerer, don't get me wrong, but he has to play Admiral. If he has to play Admiral Raddus and Tarkin and now Old Kenobi as well, it's going to be it's going to struggle, I think.
Yeah, but we might not see. Is he Old Kenobi?
He is.
Stephen Stanton is Old Kenobi.
Yes,
really.
He is.
It's not.
And he's so good.
Taylor.
No, he's so good that I thought. So we're talking Stephen Paul. We're talking about the mid-season Rebels trailer that's doing the rounds.
Have you seen it, guys? Have we lost Steve?
No, mate. Oh, Steve's gone away from his mic.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Sorry.
Oh,
okay.
Is this what they're talking about? Where Ben's back in action?
Yes. Yeah. And the voice is so good that I thought it was unused audio from the original movie.
Right. Okay.
It fooled me just like that, and I heard it, and I thought they've stitched that together like episode 7. But no, it's actually Stephen Stanton, and I was blown away. And I even tweeted him the words, "You are some sort of sorcerer."
That's amazing.
He didn't reply though. It's just
can't be trusted.
No.
Sorry, guys. Steel Wars gets replies.
Oh yeah, well there you go. See, we've got to build our profile. Well, I think there's some great options there for things that they could do. And one last thing on Tim's question. Will an audience adapt to non-linear storytelling? So if you were to, we're going to find out in just under 2 years, right? So we've got.
Can I just throw something in?
Yeah, go on.
I think they can do what they want. Honest.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. Because going back to the Star Wars figures, everything we did was a different story every day, just using these characters, and we were making our own scenarios up, and we were making our own planets up, and we were doing everything. If we can allow them to carefully use the same kind of imagination, they can knock this out of the park on everything they do.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And you made the point I was going to make, except you made it better. I think that this, to build on your concept there, Paul, this Star Wars franchise is a sandbox that we're all playing in. And we've taken a step backwards to tell a story before New Hope, and next year we're jumping forward to tell a story after Force Awakens, and then we're going back again even further to tell the Han Solo story. People are already buying into it, and they're already learning. We're being trained by Lucasfilm now how to navigate these oceans of this moving stage that they're telling stories on. Yes, this is where you are now. There's a Death Star, there's Darth Vader, you know where you are. This is the Millennium Falcon, this is a young guy in a black vest. That's Han Solo. We'll learn how to deal with this. And you're right, Paul. I think they can do what they want because we're all going to be there with them as they do it. I think the majority of the audience is going to be along while these films are in production, and they're going to know exactly what they're going to get out of the gate. No one's going to be surprised.
I think Rogue One's probably already brought on the new crew as well. So
Yeah, looking at the numbers, it certainly is doing something. All right. Thank you for that, Tim. I heard they got a new host, actually, on the Nerd Room. I'm halfway through their latest episode.
Oh, cool.
Where they discuss a bit of this in their episode. So I thought that's really cool of them to involve us and ask us that question. So thanks, Tim, and the guys. Right, question from Robert Phillips. Paul, did you want to take this? This is a tweet. From Robert Roby-Wan Kenobi.
So Robert Phillips, also known as Shaky787. Is it just me, or is it only when following Krennic in Rogue One we don't see planet title cards? Confidentiality? It's interesting. Why are some planets not labelled in Rogue One? I got to be honest, in my naivety, I think I only thought the label stopped because we'd already been there. Is that not the case?
It's not.
Mustafar didn't have labels.
Mustafar didn't have a label. Lamu, the first location, didn't have a label.
Just now with Mustafar, did they not label it because it became obvious after about 7 more seconds?
Yeah, but there is an actual answer to this, and the reason why Mustafar didn't have a title card was because they didn't want to give away the surprise that we were about to see Vader.
Kind of what I just said. Then we gathered it after a few seconds. Okay.
Even though only a small percentage of the audience, I think, would have been surprised, and the same audience members that would have been surprised by Vader being there will be confused by who the guy is in the tank in the Bacta tank. So there is, this Venn diagram we're always talking about. There's a tiny little cross section that not labelling Mustafar works for. None of that surprised us. We knew immediately who was there, who we were about to see, right? And I think most diehard fans do. It's an interesting thing that Robert suggested that this is confidentiality, that Krennic's locations, or the locations we follow Krennic to, aren't documented. And when I was thinking about the suggestion within this tweet, it kind of works that if we're following the story of these rebels as the story is almost being told in almost like a mission format, and when you listen to the audio book or you read the novelization, and you get these little intersections, these little breakout pieces of story where you're reading emails from Mon Mothma or you're getting journal entries from another character, you kind of see that it's almost as if you're sifting through a log of this historical event. And I wondered if we were seeing these locations through the eyes of the mission. You go to the Ring of Catherine or you go to Wabani because it's all part of the Rebels' mission. And Krennic isn't a part of the Rebels' mission, so it may not have been documented in that way.
Interesting.
That's a really cool idea.
Yeah,
it's a possibility that we're being told a story almost like as a historical event.
And they're almost letting us be sort of first person.
Yeah.
Almost a first person situation. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Which is quite an interesting thing. Actually, so in a way, what Robert suggested, confidentiality works, doesn't it? That because we know we arrive on Edu because we see the title card because we're following the rebels. Okay. But when Krennic rocks up there, we don't get it from Krennic's perspective. We don't get that. I'm on Edu as well. He doesn't say Edu 5 minutes later. Boom, I'm here. Just as when he arrives at Lamu or he arrives at Mustafar,
I really like that.
We don't get those credit things because it's not a part of the rebel story.
Yeah, I like that.
That's headcanon, but it could work, isn't it, right?
Yeah, it's cool. I think that works. I'd buy that, as you say.
Buy it for $1. Okay, thank you, Robert.
I always found it kind of odd that the big guy set up a nice little summer home in Mustafar, taking into account what happened there previously.
Well, it's because that was.
Was it? Someone said to me it's something to do with the Emperor's kind of torturing him and making him remind him, and it's just stirring up the dark side of him constantly. Is that probably true?
I read somewhere that it was for him to come to terms with what happened.
Yeah, he's the Emperor made him go there, and the castle is built on something else. There are dark secrets in that castle.
There's a film.
Yes. There is a film on 35mm in his basement. He's got like a built-in theatre. He goes down there, takes his helmet off, he's got a little pop of popcorn. Maybe he puts his popcorn in the helmet. Don't laugh at helmet, Steve. We're grown men. Who am I trying to kid?
Not saying helmet then.
He was forced to. Yeah, so he's forced to stay on Mustafar, where he fell to Obi-Wan, and to my mind, he's forced to live in hell because that's where, as far as he knows, he killed Padme. So.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah,
he is in a hell of his own making.
Yeah, it makes him powerful.
Apparently it's quite nice though during the summers.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, especially you've got lovely lava side property like he's got there. I mean, he
warm all year round.
He really bagged gold there, really. Yep. Okay, one last question before we go to our break before Connor's Corner. This is from Stephen Howard. Hi guys, got a Rogue One question for the show. What do you think is the significance of Cassian stopping Jyn from killing Krennic on the Citadel Tower on Scarif? Why did Cassian stop Jyn from going? She was about to lay the boot in, I think, wasn't she?
I think he knew he was already dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's going to happen anyway.
Reasonable. Yeah.
Be above that. It's happening anyway.
Mm-hmm. Rob, any take on that?
I kind of go with that actually. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything. There doesn't necessarily have to be anything to it beyond. It could just be they're trying to get away as quickly as possible, and that's wasted time.
Mm-hmm. Steve?
Any other thing?
No, I agree. We've got 0 for 3 there. I agree with that completely.
Yeah, well, I finished the audiobook yesterday. I was hoping there might be some insight in it, so that I could address Stephen's question intelligently, but there really isn't. There's nothing in the book to that point. I think just visually it's showing that our heroes are made of sterner stuff than that. That they're going to rise above the petty attitudes that you might expect to see from an Imperial or from a bounty hunter. That our heroes won't stoop so low as to kick a man when he's down. And that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Another piece of interesting visual storytelling, really, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yes, good stuff. She is much more of a hero by the end of this movie than she is at the start, that's for sure. She has a lovely, rewarding arc, that character.
And that's kind of growth for Cassian as well, isn't it? Because he used to sort of shoot his way out of his own problems.
Yeah, after what we saw at the start in the Ring of Catherine, he's more than
he's gradually
back.
going away from that.
It was interesting that I was reading about Gareth Edwards setting out an entire film made up of clips of other films in similar scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Have you read about that? It's on.
Yeah, I've read that.
And the scene when she's doing her speech to Mon Mothma, I guess, where she's getting quite sort of angry about the whole situation.
Yeah.
It was equated to the scene with Ripley where she's talking about the fact that all the bureaucrats don't know what they're talking about.
Okay.
Did IQ suddenly drop while I was away?
In Aliens, yeah.
In Aliens. And that was the scene. So they literally spaced the whole film out with scenes from other films to get the kind of, that was the scene we want. We want people to feel this way when she's doing that. Very clever way of setting the film out.
George did that with A New Hope, didn't he? But a lot of his was less about performances and it was more about aerial footage, dogfight footage. All of that stuff is cut together as kind of an animatic. So that
one of his reels is, as you go through, there's even some very, very, very early Williams soundtrack in there, I understand, but there's literally just stills of like the round table and the knights fighting, and to give you an idea of it, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
And there's a Lauren and Hardy scene pops up. He's like, right, this is the two robots in the desert, but it's just a picture of Lauren. And apparently there's a 90-minute sort of reel like this.
Yeah.
Which would be awesome to see, seriously.
Yeah, there's some stuff in the behind-the-scenes documentaries that you can go to. I think Empire of Dreams is one where you can see some of these animatics and the illustrations all cut together with dogfights from old World War II war movies.
Yeah.
It's very interesting stuff. It's a very interesting approach. I'm glad to see that Gareth is taking that approach because that's the DNA of Star Wars. That's the heart of it. And
I think he nailed that stuff.
He certainly understands it.
Yeah.
Hence the Twitter question from last episode.
Yeah. Same with Giacchino as well. That Rogue One score is a real grower. I had to listen to it without the film for the first time the other day, and it's really good.
Yeah, it's an incredible achievement for 4.5 weeks of work.
Oh, big time. I couldn't do that in 4.5 weeks.
No.
I'd have to learn to compose, admittedly, so there's that. But
I'd have to not be tone deaf. That would be my first challenge.
That helps a lot.
Let's run off to a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have the first Connor's Corner of 2017. If you'd like to support what we do here at Talk Star Wars, you can do so by becoming a TSW sponsor. For as little as £1 per month, given securely via PayPal, you can help us keep the lights on here at TSW. When you become a TSW sponsor, we will elevate you to VIP status. As a TSW VIP, you'll get access to an exclusive stream that provides you with fun downloads like HD wallpapers for your desktop, tablet and mobile device, ringtones and text alerts courtesy of our very own audio Jedi at Rob Wade Vision. You'll also receive a monthly newsletter with news about what's going on here at Talk Star Wars, and you'll get a priority release of the new Star Wars audio commentary series called TSW Feature Comms. All this for as little as £1 per month. Head to talkstarwars.co.uk/support and become a TSW sponsor today, and the Force will be with you always.
And we're back. So, as you've just heard, if you want to get involved and support what we do at Talk Star Wars, the steps are about 30 seconds ago, so you can always wind back or, listen out for the next time. But as is always customary after that point, it's time for Connor's Corner featuring Leo. So this is the first one of 2017, so I've got to do this justice. So as it's become my catchphrase, I'm not even kidding, by the way, Mark. This is the thing that I've noticed on Twitter. People are actually picking up on this.
Thusly.
Connor writes thusly. Gentlemen, let me start off this week by wishing you a very late but very happy New Year. I trust you all had a nice Christmas and a very happy New Year. The festive season was a great time to catch up on all the Commonwealth podcasts that have been produced, and there have certainly been a lot of them. The excellent fireside chats and the Journals of the Willing, to name but a few. I have to admit I'm most excited for the upcoming TSW Roundtable, showing it's indeed a very exciting time for the Commonwealth, which is getting more and more diverse with each show it adds. Thank you, a place we can call home. I'm sure by now you gents have paid tribute to the galaxy's favourite princess. She will be missed and is truly amongst the stars, shining very brightly. Anyway, I do have something I'd like to run by you guys for discussion. There's been a lot of press lately about the images in the Rogue One trailers that never made it to the film. These must surely have been the scenes that were reshot for the film. I was reading today on Yahoo Movies an interview with editors John Gilroy and Colin Goody. Is it Goody?
I believe so, yeah.
That Cassian shooting the informant, for instance, was showing us how far he's willing to go for the cause. Bodhi going across the desert fleshed out the character. Both, in my opinion, were great choices. Bodhi was a standout character for me anyway. Then they went on to say that the end of the movie was changed. We all saw that scene with Jin on the beach with the hard drive that never made it. It looked really good, but they said it had changed quite a bit, so somewhere in the editing suite they have those scenes. The interview also went on to say there was an opening crawl that was cut. So do you guys think that with all this footage and news coverage we're getting, that we could see an alternate cut of the film in the future? The director's cut, if you like, but more like what we've seen with the Lord of the Rings films or Kingdom of Heaven. As we know, Star Wars fans love special editions. Sorry, I did my best to get through that with a straight face. Just look at how many times we all bought the originals, and Disney knows this. I, for one, would love to see this darker war movie that had some scenes reshot. Anyway, I've taken up far too much of your time and look forward to hearing your thoughts on this as always. Take care and may the force be with you. Connor, proud knight of the Commonwealth. Well, Connor, thank you very much for emailing in, as always. It's always a pleasure to hear from you, and
Indeed.
Hopefully you had an enjoyable Christmas and New Year to go with it yourself.
Happy New Year, sir. Happy New Year, Leo.
Indeed.
So do we
Right
think
then.
there'll be director's cuts of Rogue? No.
No.
All right, moving on.
Yeah, no. It's, one thing actually on this, one thing that really wound me up recently is I've seen loads of articles that suggest that the ending was completely changed, and that's not the case. And actually, in these articles, they say it's not the case, but they go with the clickbait headlines. So I'm going to go a bit Kyle here and say that the clickbait headlines are driving me up the wall, and it's the one that says the ending was completely different once. And what it actually said was that Gareth Edwards devised an ending that they were expecting to have to do because they didn't think that Kathleen Kennedy and the rest of Lucasfilm's higher-ups would approve an ending where everybody died. And actually, it was the opposite. Kathleen Kennedy said, no, you've got to do that.
She said wipe them out, all of them, right?
Yeah,
That's what
pretty
she said,
much,
I think. And before cackling and then firing lightning out of her fingers.
Maybe. Unlimited.
You mean they actually used filmmaking to make this film?
Isn't that weird, Steve? What an unusual concept.
God.
But what really drives me up the wall about it is they make it sound like, from the headline, when you read it, it seems like there's an ending that's on the cutting room floor. But that's not what happened. It's like they make it sound like they got to the stage where it was ready to go, and then they said, oh, no, you can kill all the characters off, and they rewrote it completely. It's not the case. It drives me up the wall because, like I say, it's the clickbait stuff. It's making you think, oh, there was a different ending, and it's not. It's just that they had a different ending in mind when they first conceived of the film. And actually, it was Anthony Bresnikan, wasn't it, Mark, who was saying, no, they always shot it with everybody dying by the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
He said that
Even if they didn't, it doesn't matter, does it? Like, that's filmmaking. You change it. As you build it, you realise what needs changing about it, and you change it, and then you make a better film. Force Awakens was totally different, wasn't it? Till the door dropped on Han's leg.
Yeah, they took time away and rewrite it. You're absolutely right. Yeah. So these things, I mean, Paul,
these things happen.
You and I we've both dabbled in creative writing. We've written a script, and it wasn't like we just said, oh, it's Tuesday at 4 p.m. This is it. It's done. It's always evolving and always changing. And Steve,
you reread and reread and reread, then completely reimagine, and it's like, no, we've got to shoehorn something in here somehow.
Yeah.
You don't just look at a subtle way of going at a slightly different angle, and then it genetically changes, but you can always bring it back on path. So.
Yeah. See, that I understand, but like I say, is what drove me up the wall more is that they talked about it like the ending where people survived actually got anywhere in the filming process.
Yeah.
When that's not what happened.
No. I think what it is, Rob, I think people, and Connor, seeing as we're addressing your comment.
People too.
Well, he's not just any people, he's a knight of the Commonwealth.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
People like to think that on day one, everyone turns up with a nice, beautifully bound copy of the script and they just say, right, this does not change. And then they make their film, they get all their shots, someone goes away and tapes it all together and you're done. Let's just release this thing, get it out there. That's just not the way it works. And we said from the start with the reshoots thing, there are pickups involved with any major production, certainly with a production of this sort of magnitude, like this budget. Magnitude, where you're free to sit down and evaluate the film that you've made thus far. So you can sit down and say, oh, hang on, this character of Bodhi is a little bit underdeveloped. And to me, it's one of my favourite aspects of Rogue One. Riz Ahmed,
I think it's great,
knocks that performance out the park. It's so nuanced. For a Star Wars movie, that character is incredibly nuanced. So I can see someone sitting down and thinking, I want to learn a little bit more on screen now about that character's motivations. What did Galen say to him that set him on the path that leads him to Jyn? And then Jyn moves forward like a billiard ball, you know. Bodhi Rook comes into her life and then she's motivated to move on. And all of these characters are crashing around each other and setting each other on their paths. I'm glad that they went back and said, let's do more of that. Let's develop Bodhi. Let's go back. Let's put the Ring of Kafrene scene in so that we can see how morally grey Cassian Andor is. Because we need to know that about him. Because when he makes his decision on Edu to change his method of working, we need to understand exactly where he's come from to get to that point. Then you get nice, well-rounded character arcs. When you start adding chunks of exposition and character development into a story, something has to come out. Because you're not dealing with a trilogy of films. You've got a finite amount of space in which to work.
Yeah.
So the stuff that when you and I spoke to Anthony Bresnik and we'd said then, we felt the ending of that film, the third act, there was too much story to tell. If they had to go to the Citadel Tower, if they had to go to the data vault and get the data tape with the plans to the Death Star on, and then get out of there, run across the beach to get to the Citadel Tower so they could transmit that's an action scene. If you cut that out and you put the data tower, the data silo, and the Citadel Tower, they're one and the same location, you save that time.
Yes.
And that, I think, is where we save the run along the beach, the ATA CTs firing on those rebels, and the TIE fighter, all of that stuff went and saved them time. And it sped the film up. And increased that pace, increased that sense of urgency. It's incredibly brave to kill you're killing your darlings when you're writing things like this, to be able to take a section out and say, I'm in love with this, but it doesn't work. Yeah. When you have to kill a scene like that, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Especially something as well crafted as this film, to take something out like that. When you've already teased it as well, you've already shown people, it's incredibly brave. They should be celebrated for it, not criticised for it. And I think it works. I think the film and the format it's in right now, it works. Precisely because of wise choices being made.
Agreed.
But no, I don't think we'll see a director's cut, Connor.
No, I don't think so either. We might see some extended scenes as deleted, but they'll be presented separately. It won't be a new version of the film.
They'll be presented. I don't think you'll see anything that goes against canon, though.
No, I'm not suggesting they'll.
Not even as a curio.
There'll be, but there might be some extended stuff as part of the deleted scenes. I don't see.
As long as it can't change the story, can it? Because then if the hard drive's on the beach, it's changing the story, so you can't put that bit in.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I don't think they'll put that bit in. You might get
one thing to remember is K2SO's in the background of that shot, so you have to rewrite the whole thing.
Exactly. You can't do anything that's going to confuse canon by putting material out there that can get mistaken.
Yeah.
Connor, great stuff. Thank you very much.
Always. Strong start for the year, mate.
Strong start. We look forward to getting you onto an episode of the Roundtable as well with us.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Right, let's get to a Twitter poll that we had last time, which was upset one person at least, but anyway. Gareth Edwards made an almost perfect Star Wars movie with Rogue One. So the next question is obvious. Should Gareth return to make more? 37% of people that took the time to vote said yes, anything. This vote got 126 votes. The poll got 126 votes, and 2,210 people were reached. So 37% yes, anything. Pretty strong.
Yeah, pretty convincing margin of victory there.
30% said yes, but they particularly wanted another standalone movie. 20%
That's what I said
he's one and done. But
I can't remember what I said now. I'll have to have a look.
Who's doing episode 10? Or 9, sorry.
Colin Trevorrow.
Colin Trevorrow, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Rian Johnson.
I can say, because I was reading how they're thinking about making that a lot darker. Because this one's done so well.
But having said that, that's the Jedi equivalent, isn't it?
Well, it would be dark anyway, wouldn't it?
You have
Yeah.
to be careful. Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a balance to be struck with that one, I think.
Well, you know,
it has to be dark.
Yeah. You know, actually, I know we've moved on now, but it's just made me think of that, talking about episode 8. Surely they're doing exactly what we just discussed for episode 8 right now with Carrie's scenes, aren't they? They're looking at them again.
We're going to talk about some of this in the news, I think, mate, when we get to...
okay.
When we get to episode 8. So we're going to be able to cover some of that stuff.
Sure.
If we'd have recorded
I read
last
the,
week,
show
maybe
notes.
we
I know
wouldn't.
it's there.
I know you did, mate. I know you're all over it. Let's just throw a Twitter poll question out there for next week. This one I have written. I'm just about to post it now. So the question is, this relates to a news story you're going to hear in a minute. What would you like to see in a future Star Wars animated TV show? Would you like to see a post-Return of the Jedi saga story in animated form on TVs in a serial format? Would you like to see Knights of the Old Republic, KOTOR, K-O-T-R on the poll, perhaps a young Luke Skywalker show, or a sequel era show, so something that takes place whilst the First Order are in play and the Resistance, etc. So I'm going to post that now. It's going live for 6 days, 23 hours, and it will be pinned to our profile momentarily. That is pinned now. Okay.
No, Paul and mine. I think Paul's in the same camp as me.
You're not really that invested, are you?
I'd rather concentrate on live action and do another couple of films instead of
Did you see the
doing
trailer?
a live action TV show.
Did you see the trailer for Rebels, though, Steve? The season 3.
I haven't.
Right.
Maybe I should.
Do yourself a favour. Go and watch that right now. Jump over.
Okay.
Mute your
Is
audio.
there no link? I'll turn my audio off.
If you go to the Talk Star Wars YouTube channel, the the Star Wars Rebels playlist should have it right in there. That's the last thing I added to that playlist. And see what you think of that. And we're just going to jump into this animation news whilst you're doing that, Steve. Paul, did you want to check that out as well? So, moving into news, Star Wars animation. There will be a new Star Wars TV show. Lucasfilm are advertising for storyboard artists and such alike. In an advert, here's the language from the advert that was run on their site. So, the position they're looking for works closely with a supervising director and episodic directors to create expressive and entertaining storyboards for an episodic TV series. The storyboard artist conveys story from script through visual storytelling techniques in a 3D environment. Now, this came from our friend, long-time listener Dave Donovan, and he and I discussed the possibilities based on this job advertisement on the Lucasfilm Animation website. Now, a little while ago, Dave Filoni became a supervising director on Star Wars Rebels and handed over the day-to-day directing duties to somebody else, a gentleman whose name I hadn't researched, and I apologise. And it frees him to oversee future animation on within Lucasfilm, so future Star Wars programming. So would you be interested? One of the things I threw out to Dave was that perhaps there'd be a TV show that looks at the adventures of a young Luke Skywalker on Tatooine. I wondered if this might have been why Lucasfilm were avoiding Obi-Wan Kenobi at the moment, because they intend to develop the character more, tell some stories on TV. This is before that season 3 mid-season trailer dropped, which is why there's a big picture of Obi-Wan in the show notes. But what do you reckon? Is there a chance that we could see a Luke Skywalker TV show? A young Luke Skywalker TV show on TV? Animation on TV?
He's quite young in A New Hope, though, isn't he?
Well, he's what, 19?
Yeah. I mean, are you talking pre-19?
I'm talking, like, think of the target audience on Disney XD and make Luke that age. If he's 11, 12 years old.
Right. So, but I mean, my question is, what would happen? Is I mean, he's pretty blind at 19, isn't he?
Yeah,
obviously nothing has happened. He's screaming to get off that desert planet.
Yeah, but think about the detail that you can start to lay into that character on a TV show. Now, there's a gamut of characters that are in Luke's life from the New Hope novelisation. There's characters, I think there's Deke, Windy, Fixer, Cammy. Then we know there's Biggs Darklighter. There's a guy named Tank who left. Remember that thing and that line in the dialogue?
No Tank, yeah.
So there's all these characters that you could suddenly throw in. You could tell a small town Midwestern story about these kids that get together and they build their hot rods, but instead of it being hot rods as we recognise them, they're little skyhoppers. And you get the racing through Beggar's Canyon, and all the while you're starting to see Luke develop and use the Force the way we saw young Anakin use it, or the way we saw Ezra using the Force.
Without having any idea what he's doing.
Without having any idea. But in the background all the time, there's old Ben Kenobi who's hanging around, and there can be, you've got Uncle Owen that can be constantly shooing Obi-Wan away, and Luke wanting to know more about who this guy is, looking for answers about who his parents were. Now, think of that little animated character standing by the graves on the homestead, looking at Shmi's grave and wanting to know more about where he came from. There's some great stuff. There's some great stories to be told there. Rob, what do you make of it?
I watched it.
Oh, Steve, all right, what do you think?
Well, obviously I couldn't. I'll watch it again later. Am I watching the mid-season trailer?
That's right, yeah.
With the split finger Obi-Wan at the end?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, visually, because I couldn't hear a lot of the sound, because obviously I'm hearing you guys as well, but visually it looks a lot different to what I remember when I've seen clips of other Rebels and stuff.
Good.
It looks awesome, especially the the space stuff looks amazing.
It looks fantastic, doesn't it? It looks like Rogue One, right?
I might have to. This is a stupid question. Obviously, I realise people are going to be going with their head in their hands, listening to me talking a load of rubbish about this stuff. But when's that set?
This
specifically
is just before New Hope.
A couple of years before
okay.
Rogue One.
But before Rogue One,
yeah, a couple of years before.
Okay, I might give it a go. And obviously, the first half of that season's already been and gone.
Yeah, you can get most of them, I think, on Sky. Are you on Sky or Virgin?
Well, they're on YouTube. And obviously, I'm not supposed to say that, but
no,
they are. It. No, they're on YouTube.
Paul's just watching it now, so he can throw in on this in a moment. But
yeah,
and we might as well segue really neatly into the conversation about this this Rogue One trailer now, because this Rebels trailer now, because that's next thing on our agenda. And once Paul's finished watching, we can all kick this around a bit. Steve was just saying that there's some news about a new animated series coming out of Lucasfilm. And I was suggesting that maybe we could see a story about young Luke on Tatooine.
Oh, okay, yeah, that would be cool.
With all of his friends doing all these.
Yeah, I mean, because that makes sense, because these are aimed towards a younger audience generally, or a really hardcore audience. One of the two, aren't they?
Yeah, well, yeah, both simultaneously. Yeah. They work in both ways. You can, we know some of the members of the Commonwealth watch this show with their kids. So the kids get to sit and they watch brightly coloured animated characters doing,
like Jeremy.
Comedic joys. Yeah, Jeremy does with his children, doesn't he?
I mean, his son is honestly, there's nothing he doesn't know about Star Wars. You can't believe it when you talk to him.
Yeah, he's amazing, yeah.
So yeah, no, I can totally see that. I've never been able to get over that, but I might. Having just seen that visually, it looks a lot more up my street.
The editing in the trailer as well really ups the stakes, I think.
Yeah.
It shows that the creators are taking it seriously. They don't see it as exclusively a children's TV show.
No.
And it was
No,
like
and
that
it
with
looked
the
a
Clone
bit
Wars.
darker.
It does look darker, and the whole thing with Obi-Wan around that campfire, that's just amazing. And I think
That's not Ewan McGregor, is it? Or is it?
Robbie, you're saying it's Stephen Stanton.
Stephen Stanton, yeah. I thought it
Okay.
was. I thought it was Alec Guinness old footage that hadn't been used. You know, something or cut together audio like they did for Force Awakens, but it's actually Stephen Stanton, which just confirms that he is some sort of wizard.
It's staggering, isn't it? Just hearing
Brilliant.
him
It
say,
had me
"You're in
fooled."
the wrong place."
Yeah.
And it's definitely. I mean, there's no editing jiggery pokery there, is there? That's definitely Maul standing right next to Obi-Wan's
Sure.
camp.
It's
Yeah.
a blink and you'll miss it shot because I got it eventually, but I didn't see it at first.
Oh, so he is back then.
Oh yeah,
He's been back for ages.
he's
So
back.
how did he join back in together?
Robot legs.
Back to tank?
No, it's basically like half a Darth Vader, really. The bottom half
With
of
no
his body
PP?
is probably no PP. I would have thought. No,
Cut of the waist, bless him.
bless
So
him.
isn't it? I mean,
That's
the
why he's
first
so
thing
angry.
he'd say if you were his enemy would go, "Look, you do what you like to me, mate. You ain't got a PP." And that's going to knock him off his guard straight away, isn't it?
But he'd have to say it in Obi-Wan's voice. You can do
You
what
do what
you
you
like.
like. You haven't got a
You
PP.
don't even have a PP. It's in the wrong.
That's your
It's in the
advantage
wrong
there,
place.
isn't it?
Advantage, Obi-Wan. Paul,
Yeah.
you've just finished watching. What do you make of it, mate?
That looks really fun.
Yeah, it looks cool, doesn't it?
It does look good, yeah. Dark Saber, that was cool. I like that bit.
Yes. Yeah, the
But
dark
like you say, I mean, as far as the space and that is concerned, it's top notch. Absolutely top notch. If you can get your head around a little bit the what's the best way to describe the youthful approach you can see in their animation with the faces and stuff, it looks it's kind of almost cute to a small degree, which is fine because like
It's a bit anime, doesn't it?
yeah, well, a little bit, yeah.
It's
But you've got to
gorgeous.
take the audience into account. But I'm gonna try a few of these. I've got to.
Now, of course, we're all falling over ourselves looking at the Obi-Wan sections of this trailer, the Obi-Wan the Maul sections. Yes, this is what you want. I think that they're showing us the left and giving us the right here with Sabine and the Darksaber. I think we're seeing somebody's heritage on screen here. And I've suspected for some time that she might have a connection to Kenobi through Satine, who's a character from the Clone Wars. I think she might be Obi-Wan Kenobi's kid. Sabine,
I think that's
with the Darksaber.
Yeah, okay.
that changes too much for me. I know it's a popular theory doing the rounds, but that's changing Lucas established canon that he's just been sort of by himself. He's been devoted to the Jedi Order, despite its faults. It's too big a leap.
But it's on screen in Clone Wars. He definitely had a connection with Satine
but
Kryze.
there's a difference between that and wanting to quit the Jedi Order and go off and get married like Anakin. But he obviously didn't quit, but he was happy. He was willing to for love.
Obi-Wan was.
That's a big. No, I'm saying
No, in
Anakin
Clone Wars, Obi-Wan was. And
that to me even feels a bit much.
And I think it happened before Clone Wars, because when those two characters get back together on screen, the Clone Wars, there's some history. Like she wouldn't allow him to leave the Order to be with her, because she wouldn't allow him to give up on his commitment to the Jedi Order. So that's already established as canon.
Yeah, see that I already think is too much. But obviously, if it's done, it's done. I mean, I can't do much about it. But
Well, you can write a strongly worded letter. I mean, everyone.
oh
likes
yeah,
a
because
strongly
that always
worded
works.
letter.
I'll start a change.org. They always work.
Yeah. So we're
I also know for a fact that Ben is a big girly virgin.
and we know Steve's just outed Darth Maul as having no PP, so we've just got two really
It's
messed
metal.
up characters.
It's metal. Have you seen Seven?
Oh, Paul, that's horrible. I've just thought of a horrible image now.
Oh dear. Okay.
That poor guy screaming. Oh,
Only
no, that's
we
not-
could segue from an animated TV show for children to Seven, and one
I
of
was
the most
kind of
horrific.
responsible for that one, yeah.
Oh, Rob, why didn't you try and keep this ship on its rails?
I'm sorry, you kept every time it was about to come to me, somebody else would go, "I've got a thing to say," and I'd just be like, "Yesterday's jam."
Okay. Yesterday's jam in the form of box. That's a clumsy segue. I'm not even going to pursue that one. Let's look at Rogue One's box office.
Okay. Did you not want to hear my thoughts on the animated series there?
Let's just touch on Rob's thought from the animated series.
I don't really have any, Mark. Moving on.
Moving on to yesterday's jam.
I just wanted to make you backpedal so fast you'd trip over your chair.
Did you want to throw anything in about this, mate?
No, I mean, I quite happily see them play in the Civil War era endlessly with a new set of characters, or sort of take some of the Rebels cast and move them into a different environment. I really like those that era.
Like Hera.
Place to play. Yeah, it could be about Hera.
Mm-hmm.
Could be about Sabine growing up, because she's quite popular, deservedly so. She's great. Yeah, I mean, there's loads of space to play in that space, I think. So I think the Galactic Civil War era is a good one to play in. Anything they do that would be sort of post Jedi would be, I don't know. I think they'd have to be too careful about not treading on things, and obviously they got the story group to make sure that happens, I guess. So I don't know. Yeah, it would be one of the big gaps. So either the Galactic Civil War or just kind of the immediate aftermath of Jedi. There we go.
And I think they're doing a lot of that in the Aftermath books, aren't they? They're developing those stories and different characters in that era. So maybe there's a chance for us to look at, if we could say Harrison Dula would make it out of the events of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
perhaps we could follow her and Phoenix Squadron as they and mop up some of these isolated cells of Imperial resistance. They will be at that point, I guess, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, now let's move on to Rogue One, a Star Wars story box office news. So just under 3 weeks in the box office, I think. Are we at this point? Something like that.
Sounds about right, yeah.
817 million puts the film
pretty good going
at number 58 in the all-time highest grossing movies.
Pretty good going. What was the there was a news piece that said that they'd hit some sort of important Star Wars milestone recently. You know what it was?
It's number 2. It's second only to The Force Awakens in just about every category.
Wow, okay.
In terms of the franchise, I'm just on Box Office Mojo now, trying to get a little bit more information for you. So in Star Wars series, it's now second.
Yeah, it's pretty good going.
Yeah, by 20 million. It's trounced Phantom Menace by 20 million, which is no small feat either, because Phantom Menace had the benefit of all that time away from Star Wars, and everyone was
the benefit of no one knowing it was crap.
Well, there was that from the cheap seats.
Still the 7th best Star Wars movie. That's the 7th best movie ever made. I'm kidding.
I'd suggest there's an element of truth to that, but as you're fond of saying, Rob, your mileage may vary. I think Phantom Menace is better than many of the prequel movies.
Better than a pile of doggy poo-poo.
You're very echoed, Steve. Are you doing yoga?
He's got a cat in his mouth, probably.
I'm laying on the mic. This mic thing.
Yeah.
Used to it.
There you go.
There you go.
So your number 58 worldwide all-time box office is not to be sniffed at, and it hasn't even opened in all territories yet, because it doesn't open until, at the time of recording, tomorrow in China.
Actually, 55 all-time worldwide.
It's gone up. I got 58 when I took these numbers last thing this evening before we started recording.
It's been a busy couple of hours.
It's gone up. It's 8.291 billion.
Wow,
they 829 trillion. 8.29 trillion. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's gone up since I put the first notes down. Wow.
Yeah, it's got the entire GDP of the history of Venezuela
and
surrounding countries.
Yeah, for several times over.
It has jumped up. So that's it. Since we started recording, that's jumped up significantly.
Stats.
829 million, 55. Wow.
Is it dubbed or subtitled in China?
I guess it was dubbed.
There's probably room for both, I would think.
Maybe, yeah. I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? We kind of forget that for some countries, English is still almost a first language, just because it's taught so thoroughly and so well that it could easily be that, like, either, like you say, either one could work. I mean, I watched a couple of films in French cinemas, and they tend to dub with subtitles for some reason.
Because there's some nuances that will be missed, I would think, if you just subtitled a film, because of brevity, and there's some idiosyncrasies that are very Western in these films that will need to be recontextualized, and a dub is possibly the best way to do that.
Yeah.
For a foreign audience, or for a non-domestic audience, I should say.
I guess so, yeah.
Well, 829, number 55.
Already domestically, obviously, United States. It's the number 11 film ever in America already.
2 weeks.
Quite something.
Well, just shy of 3 weeks in theatres. That's
it is
ridiculous.
now, it's like halfway to Force Awakens.
Well, you can see why, when we get to Han Solo, A Star Wars Story news, why they're considering relocating that movie's release date, because this window that they've carved out for themselves now seems to be working, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no argument there.
They're getting something right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's touch on this rather hot potato. This is something that if we had recorded last week, I probably wouldn't have wanted to talk about, but Episode 8, where might they go with Episode 8 now that we've lost the wonderful Carrie Fisher? Will she be missing from Episode 9? Or could Leia make it out of Episode 8 safely, and they'll need to find a creative way to get Leia on screen for the final movie in the trilogy?
I read one thing that said she had quite an enormous part in 9.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't surprise me. She was definitely coming back for 9.
Yes.
I think it's too early to say about CGI. It's disrespectful to talk about CGI right now, but it's certainly something as time goes on that Disney might discuss.
I don't know. I think her situation is completely different to Peter Cushing, and they've got to give her an honourable dispatch from the saga.
I'm glad that this has come up, because this is a point that I wanted to try and steer the conversation towards, because it does kind of reframe the ethics of what was done with Peter Cushing, whether it was done with the actors, the permission of the actors' estate, which of course we know it was. With this being so fresh in our minds, the loss of Carrie Fisher, it certainly, to me, it seems insensitive to even think about recreating the character of Princess Leia in Carrie's likeness on screen for a full movie. That seems insensitive to me. Now, whether or not it seems disrespectful, of course, I'm a week removed from that horrific news, and by the time this film comes out, we're going to be a couple of years away from it. But isn't that a double standard? Am I being hypocritical?
What's worse, Mark? That or killing her on screen? Like, you can't do that. That's going to be too close to real life, isn't it?
Right now, in all honesty, that's what I would prefer. And I'm being completely frank.
Like a remote, like where you say, "Oh, the planet's blown up and everyone's on it," that type of thing. Like what's happening, like what you think's happened to her adopted father.
Yes, yeah. They dispatched Bale off screen. I don't know if you can get away with that with a character we followed so closely for 40 years. But I certainly think what we're hearing about Episode 8 and the peril that Leia is placed in that movie, and the fact that she uses the Force in a scene to defend herself and is then incapacitated for a large section of the movie, I think that gives the filmmakers an opportunity to go back into the edit and write Leia out at that point. And there's a way to do it where you could possibly use CG, or I did write about this on the site, or where I suggested that you might also just give her dialogue, and you could maybe Stephen Stanton could rock a Princess Leia impression, because he is such a
if anybody can,
if anyone can, he can. But you could give Leia's dialogue over as to like a Force ghost, a Force presence, and deliver some exposition to Rey in a connection through the Force that will deliver the death of Princess Leia on screen if she becomes one with the Force.
I had a thought on this, actually. Do you think, bearing in mind how free Star Wars is in terms of where things can happen, do you think it would be in poor taste to do a space battle that resolves that? Because then they don't need to have they can have it happen on screen without having the character on screen.
Yeah.
Doesn't it take you out of
I don't think it'll be
film,
poor taste.
though? And it makes you think, oh, they've done this because however they do it, maybe their only option will be to keep her. I hate saying the word alive because it is so disrespectful at this early stage, but to keep her alive in the films.
Yeah.
Is that what would she want? I mean, what would she want to have? And that's what it's got to be about, isn't it? He may have mentioned this to them. Maybe she's got a living will with this stuff in it. Maybe her family are involved.
That's entirely possible.
You know,
I mean,
maybe
we don't know. Obviously, the heart stuff came out of nowhere for us, but we don't know whether or not it's something she's known about before as a risk. Obviously we didn't know about Bowie. We didn't know about
Alan Rickman.
Was it Muhammad Ali? There was, we knew he was ill, but we didn't. That wasn't what took him away, was it? It was something else. It wasn't Parkinson's related, was it?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, with a lot of these passings this past year, I haven't kept up with I can't recall what's caused everybody.
But maybe she would want to stay for the story to not be affected by her death. And if that's what she wanted, then maybe they find a way with CGI and they get it right, and they spend whatever money to get it right so that it's not disrespectful and it keeps her dream alive because she loved Star Wars.
I've got an idea. I've got an idea at how they might be able to do that. But first, Paul, can we just get your take on this? What's the best way to handle this?
I don't know. I don't know if there's a best way. I think there is a best way. I think it's number one, paying tribute to her. Number one, as who she meant to Star Wars, and number two, the character itself. And number two, they're going to have to appease the fans as much as possible as well. Mm-hmm. They're not silly in that direction. I think the way that Rogue One has moulded direction and writing may well affect this to a large degree. We can now accept loss maybe on screen a little easier. And the fact is, she's no longer with us, and I don't think people are going to be jumping up and down if we do lose her, which I actually always thought was going to happen. I think we will lose her on screen in a very honourable fashion. You're sort of yet to be determined because, like I say, I've read about 6 or 8 articles already in the last few days that apparently she had a much, much larger role in 9 than she does in 8. Okay. So I don't know whether that affects any post-production pickups in 8 now or not. It's hard to tell. So I don't know. We're still at too early a time to, number one, I guess, choose a direction from a writer's point of view, and number two, consider opinion from a fan's point of view. It's really, it's maybe a little too early.
Is there scope for another actress playing it?
I don't want to see this.
I don't want to see that.
I don't want to see her replaced by another actor, and I certainly don't want to see any kind of technological approach on this. I want an honourable farewell, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Paul. I think right now I can't imagine recasting the role is out of the question to my mind. I think the priority for Lucasfilm right now needs to be to tell the story that they want to tell. We know Carrie had wrapped on 8, so her story responsibilities in 8 are complete. So whatever happens now, they're going to have to make a decision how to write Princess Leia out of 8 so that they're free to move forward and tell the story they need to tell in 9 without Carrie's involvement. That's a given. With the responsibilities to the story in episode 8, they could use techniques that John Knoll alluded to when he was discussing the Tarkin technology in an article last week, and I wrote a piece about it on Talk Star Wars.
Yeah, I read that. It was great. It was the some of the sort of imagery was fascinating.
Yes,
I remember I was sat with Joe Crouch. He ain't no slouch, and we were reading that we sort of showed him the picture, and I said, how funny would it have been if some pillock, some temp, had just sent exported the thing with like the middle one where he looked like a statue color.
Yeah,
it would have been really funny if that would have taken me right out of the film.
Yeah, that would have.
Just turn around and he's
you want
just
complaints about Tarkin tech? That's the one right there. I think there's some of the techniques that John Knoll was talking about was taking the dialogue and giving it to another character, so that the story is still serviced. And that might be if they do go back into 8. That's an option, is to look at what Leia's dialogue is in the final act of the movie and relocate that dialogue to other people, or have the character die on screen but not necessarily see it, because that might be a little bit too raw, but have it communicated to whoever is the focus of the story. But I'm assuming that it's Rey, and have Leia communicate with Leia from the Force. The way we saw, look at the way we lost Alec Guinness in A New Hope. We lost Ben Kenobi in A New Hope, and he still had story responsibilities in that final third. He still had things to tell Luke, and that's the way I think if they Ben Kenobi'd Leia's exit from the saga, that would be the best way to handle this now, because we're letting...
What, in episode 8 though?
In episode 8.
Yeah, but they don't have to worry about the fact that she's died in real life in those films. This is too... I don't want to be sitting in the Star Wars film like getting upset about the fact that she died in real life. No, and I don't think anyone particularly wants to. This sounds really shallow, and I don't mean it like this, but the reason you go to watch a film is to remove yourself from reality, not to bury yourself in it.
No,
I think
of course.
The only way to do this is to leave 8 alone and finish it, get it done. She wouldn't want to be changed just because she'd gone. I'm sure she would want to be in the film she's made and have it artistically correct and not be affected by her passing.
Well, then
leave
that's
8 alone.
That's option 2 then, Steve. If we leave 8 as it is, because as far as I know, the maestro himself is about to start scoring 8. So if we can say that there's a print that's locked for 8, then the only possible way forward is to have a digital version of Carrie Fisher in episode 9.
Or have spoken about, or even an opening crawl saying that, and then not do any of it, and just saying the opening crawl, Princess Leia Organa's fallen, and like really incidental in 9.
But then you're the thing you're trying to avoid dealing with in 8, you're just offsetting it by 2 years and dealing with it in 9.
Yeah, but that gives them time to do that, and then also they don't need a CGI one, they don't need another actor, they don't need to do anything, because it's all it is words on a screen, and she's just put to rest in the opening crawl, and then you have 9.
Okay, let's look at that then, guys, because I don't think that will work. I think I would feel cheated if they took a character away on screen, regardless of what had happened to the actor that portrayed that character in real life. I think I would feel cheated by that. Guys, what do you think? Dispatch Leia in the opening crawl of 9?
Of not 9?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because if she's got scenes in 8,
if she makes it out of
the
8,
opening crawl of 8 makes it really odd.
Apparently she's got a fair amount of principal photography done, isn't she, for 8? And they'll consider it a disrespect to do anything for 8. I think they'll consider it a disrespect to do anything.
Well, they've got to do something. This is the thing, isn't it? Can you imagine?
She's worth more than words on a crawl.
Yes, absolutely.
Then you're left with a CGI.
Then you're left with a CGI character. Even if we said, it depends. Like another thing that's going to smack of a con.
Rob hit it earlier. You could literally have a ship, a space element, and that was it's like one of the opening scenes of Battlestar Galactica. It's like Emperor, that was my son, and all you see is the Colonial Viper getting blown up. But you think, oh God, he didn't last long. So they could happily have.
That depends largely.
That was the general.
That depends largely on Leia's story arc in 8, doesn't it? Rob, I'm conscious of the fact that I've robbed you of something there, Rob. I'm going to come back to you in just a second and let you have your say.
Oh, okay.
But if you allow Leia to go from a standing start at the open of 8 to whatever puts her in jeopardy in the early part of that film that takes her out of the story. If in fact that's true, that's just a rumour at this point that we've heard through, I think, makingstarwars.net, so it's probably sound. And then if she comes out victorious, so you take her through her dark second act, and in the third act she comes back full of vigour, presumably to go into 9 and have a nice solid story in 9. If she can't deliver that story in 9, and you've taken her through that arc of a dark second act and a triumphant third act in 9, taking her out of the movie in the opening act of episode 9 is a con, and that's not going to fit. What they need, the way I see it, what they need to do with Leia in this film is treat her like Han in Empire, where you leave her fate up in the air because you didn't know at the end of Empire if you were ever going to see Han again. And when we saw Han, he's on the wall in a block of carbonite in Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. So the best way to treat Leia now would be to retool 8 so that you can leave her fate ambiguous, but at the end of 8, and we'll all know where it's going to go, and then you can close that off in 9, or you end Act 2 of Episode 8 with her fate, and you resolve it in the third act of Episode 8.
Yeah,
so
I've got another idea, Mark.
Can we just let?
Like
can we let Rob just have one quick say on this, Steve, before we get? Because I realised he was just about to say something. I trampled all over it. I'm sorry, Rob.
What?
Jump in your comments.
I don't remember what they were now.
On Leia,
yeah.
Sorry, yeah. How should they handle Leia beyond Episode 8?
If there's one universe where character death is not a hindrance to their story presence, it's Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
She's, the only thing is, would she have studied enough to be able to do the Force Ghost stuff? Maybe that's their out. It's it's dialogue from Luke that says, I could never convince her to train. So they don't have to think about what they do in 9 because she's already gone. And she's, there's no way for her to come back through. I mean, it'd be a little bit, what's the word? It would be a little bit of a cop-out, I suppose. But, to be honest, in some ways...
It would be when you consider a couple of facts, Rob. And I realise you haven't got to the end of Rogue One, but you know how the movie ends.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
The dialogue in the novelisation describes Jyn as becoming one with the Force, and we haven't seen any Force ability.
No.
Now you can't. That can't just be hyperbole in the book.
Yeah.
What it means
in the same way as when somebody, if you can believe it, you don't have to believe in heaven and hell to say that somebody's gone to a better place.
But that sort of language used in a Star Wars movie means something directly, doesn't it?
That's true.
And to use it in a hyperbolic way is very misleading. If we can accept that there is a character that isn't necessarily a Jedi, which we see also in Chirrut, if you look, you'll see me in the Force. If we can accept that they can become one with the Force, then we can expect that a character like Leia could become one with the Force, bearing in mind that part of her story, as we understand it for Episode 8, is to use the Force to defend herself.
Yeah.
So there's some latent ability in there. And we've also seen precedents of a Sith Lord that ends up as a glowy blue ghost. Not just he's become one with the Force, but he's actually managed to master the thing that Yoda and Obi-Wan spent decades learning.
But he's the chosen one.
But he's the chosen one.
If he's indeed a product of the midichlorians, what?
Leia's his kid.
Yeah, but then that's like half the bloodline, isn't it?
Yeah, so she may still be able to
ability. Maybe, yeah, I suppose so.
Have a presence still, retain her identity.
Yeah, I can see that's possible.
So what your initial point was, if there is a universe where death isn't an obstacle at Star Wars, and that's getting Leia to survive her death as a presence within the Force. Now, it might be the disembodied voice, and I would prefer that because you don't have to do
agreed.
any...
Don't have to do any CG work or anything.
No CG work. All you have to do is...
What about a CG, so that you're not immediately reminded of an older Carrie Fisher, as she was now, a young Leia Force Ghost? That way, that's how everyone remembers Leia.
Yeah, but
kind of removed a little bit from real life.
If she's appearing to Rey, she needs to appear in the only form that Rey's ever seen her as. Surely.
Yeah, but no one knows that, do they? No one knows that deeper canon.
No, we don't. Those rules haven't been set yet, have they?
No, and to be honest, bend them a little bit.
Mm.
That's not. No one's going to complain.
I think it's going to be much simpler than all this. I really do.
Well, whatever it is, it's got to be up to the family, isn't it?
Obviously they'll approach the estate, but I think at the end of the day, she might have let it slip during celebration, where obviously we were lucky enough to at least now see her. That one of the opening lines she accidentally spouted was something to do with somebody's funeral, ironically. And if that is the case, if it was a more simple funeral, and we're pretty sure that Han's not going to have a Force Ghost of any shape or form, I think they're going to basically peacefully lay her next to Han.
Okay,
maybe, yeah.
It's just how you deliver that information. That would be a stunning visual on screen.
Oh, it made for a lovely shot.
It would be a fitting tribute.
We get to pay tribute at the same time.
Yeah, it's just
I
how you
personally
deliver
think
that.
Stay away from death. Stay away from death in these movies. Why do you, just because someone died in real life, why do you have to kill them off in the thing they loved?
It's just because you end up in a rat's nest of moral and ethical do's and don'ts. Leia's got stories.
Paul said, you're in that. There's no getting away from that.
There's no getting away from it. So it's how best do we navigate these choppy waters? Do we tackle death head on and kill the character of Leia to avoid having to walk this dangerous line of using Carrie's image after her death, which I don't think any of us want right now. And there is a way of doing that. If you have Leia pass over the way Obi-Wan did, maybe not as willingly as Obi-Wan did in A New Hope, you give her life beyond death. You give Leia life. Let's not get confused about the point I'm making.
Yeah.
We give Leia life beyond death in the Star Wars saga. You're then free to have her influence the story the way Obi-Wan did, from the other side, from within the Force, communicating whatever to, if it's Rey is the central character that she has to pass information to, then that's a way to do it. Then you celebrate. You're not necessarily dealing with the death of a character. You're talking about somebody that's managed to transcend that state and become something more. If you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. That's the line of Obi-Wan Kenobi, isn't it, in A New Hope? There's a way to take Leia beyond the confines of that corporeal character that we've been with so far.
Yeah.
But if anything...
I think... Sorry, Mark, I was going to say, how do you guys feel like, if we hear on the grapevine that Episode 8 is being changed, how's it going to make everyone feel about the movie in itself? I'm certainly going to feel a bit weird about even going to see it. I'm not sure that I'm going to feel weird, a bit like when we saw Batman, with the Joker. That made me feel really strange, because I just thought, crikey, this is kind of hard to stay in a movie because he was so good in it, and we knew he was dead. It was awful, and that alone's going to be hard. How hard is it going to be if you know now that they're adjusting the fictional story to account with real life? It's going to be very strange.
Again, there's no getting away from that, I think.
There's no getting away from it.
Well, they don't have to in 8. That's what we're saying. We can they can technically leave 8 now, can't they?
Theoretically,
they can. It depends
how it affects 9.
Yeah, it depends very much how we come out of that and what the fallout is for 9. But you're right.
Is it too late to start changing 8?
No. And
we were only 11 months away.
Well, they were only 6 months away from Rogue One's release, and they revamped 40% of the film. So it can work, it can be done. And until credits roll, or until that Lucasfilm logo shimmers to life on the first public screening of that movie, they're free to do whatever they want. And whatever they
pretty
want
much guarantee it's going to say for Carrie at the start, and if it doesn't, it should.
Not at the start. You want the
why
crawl
not?
or not?
No, we had the crawl, but like before Lucasfilm.
No, it'll be in the end credits. Usually where they do that stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. It will be the first time.
Yeah, true. I think they will do it though. I think Steve's absolutely right, but I think it'll come in the end credits. I don't think it'll be in the opening.
Yeah, I think it will be at the end credits.
It seems over time in the last couple of films that they've very much gone for get into the movie quick.
Oh,
because
breakneck speed in Rogue One, right?
Rogue One is instant, and it goes nicely with the music. But I'm thinking more along the lines of like even Force Awakens is just Lucasfilm logo, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, no fanfare.
And it's really, really swift. So
I don't
like
want,
detract.
I don't want them to shy away from Princess Leia at all.
Absolutely not. No, I don't think
that would just be disrespectful to her.
Yeah, agreed.
No,
I don't think they'll do that.
Whatever they do has to be story first, because that's Carrie's a script doctor. Her
She would appreciate that.
Priorities would be story first, and the 9 is a consideration. So you can't just have Leia can't go skipping off at the end of Episode 8 for the joys of spring, and then your opening crawl said Leia's been killed in a space, but that's not. If Carrie Fisher was brought on and they said, look, how are we going to, in an alternate universe, Carrie Fisher's brought in now, how are we going to manage this? She would script doctor that thing to not only pay tribute to the character and the performer, but to honour the story that's being told. She would find a way to make the story work, because that's what her primary responsibility and a primary interest would be.
Yeah.
So whatever they do has to be story first. And then we worry about honouring the character and paying tribute to Carrie.
And is this going to change the potential for Luke dying in 9? Because you can't have Han, Leia, and then Luke in a trilogy. It's just too much.
Yes, you can. It's the torch being passed. This is what the trilogy is about.
I don't know. It's all becoming a very
real.
All of a sudden, a very real and depressing subject.
I think what would definitely happen, though, is, Mark, if Luke Skywalker's killed off, it will happen. Luke will go out on his own terms. I don't think he'll be struck down unless it's a deliberate act like Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Can't see it going. I can't see them going for a, cheap shot.
See, we didn't realise what we were getting there. This might be. Let's wrap this up here. And move on to the Han Solo bits, because we're running very, very long. But I think what we got with Obi-Wan, we didn't realise we were getting a character that we'd only just met, being treated as if we were invested in him for decades, and he got to go out. He got to go out on his own terms. He got to go out effectively at the top of his game, because he just learnt how to transcend that barrier and become one with the Force. And he did it because he knew he had more work to do. From that, I
want to believe his last thought was, I hope I learned that right.
Yeah. I think in the Ahsoka book, we see him develop that skill in a short section of that book.
It's a weird one. How do you test it?
Have you've heard that
is
clip?
It like Flatliners?
It is,
that movie? It actually is.
Kiefer Sutherland and Julia Roberts helped Obi-Wan become one with the Force. True fact. Okay, let's move on to Han Solo.
Oliver Platt would have nothing to do with it, though.
He would not.
Yeah, true.
He would become very sweaty and frantic, though, throughout. So we mentioned a few weeks ago that whispers were suggesting that the Han Solo movie would relocate from its May release date to December 2018 release date, keeping that Christmas release window for Star Wars movies for the foreseeable future. The official release date remains a vague 2018 at the moment on all the release documentation. There is no official word from Lucasfilm, but it's worth noting that StarWars.com doesn't yet have a Han Solo tab on its homepage.
Okay.
So there's no way to sort of pin this down right now. There was talk of a May release date in 2018 for this one, which would put Han Solo's released 5 months after Episode 8.
That's too soon, I think.
Now it looks like this is almost certainly going to happen, that the film's going to be pushed back and we will retain the Christmas release date. So what is your opinion on these Christmas release dates? And do you think this film's going to benefit from having that extra time in development?
I think it's really smart. And the reason I think that is because I think they're thinking beyond just the cinema release dates. If you think about it, Rogue One is finishing up in cinemas kind of, I suppose, this month, probably, right?
No, don't know.
It's safe, but for the most part, it's going to be gone from most cinemas. Maybe it's showing in a few showings a day or something.
Think about this, the first couple of months of the year. It's usually awards bait. There's not much in the way of blockbuster films. So we might see, there might be matinee screenings in one theatre in cinemas around the country well into February.
Yeah. So let's say then that it's going to run until February.
Mm-hmm.
In April, we're probably looking at Blu-ray, DVD, digital.
Yes.
If you had a film coming out the following month, that kills it.
Yeah, you're trampling all over your own markets, aren't you?
Your own market, yeah. You're treading over it. You can ride a wave of digital, DVD, Blu-ray releases for at least a month with Rogue One, or any Star Wars film for at least a month, maybe 2 or 3. So I think anything like a May release date would just be unnecessarily obstructive to their own kind of marketing. And also that December release date, they have less and less reason to fear it every day.
Yeah.
Because they've now raked in $3 billion across 2 films. Admittedly, Force Awakens takes a huge chunk of that, but that's $3 billion across 2 films. That is nothing to be sneezed at for a December release time.
Yeah, just look at the numbers since we started recording to when we actually discussed box office. It jumped up even in that short time.
They've obviously updated it in that time, I guess. Maybe it's a time zone thing. Because I find it hard to believe that they've made however many million difference it was while we were talking.
Yeah, well, you don't know. Blue War's pretty busy.
I think 3 million is probably conservative with all the Blu-rays and that. You know, without those, I think it's probably almost to the point where it's breaking even with what they paid for Star Wars.
Yeah, every film might pay them that, in fact.
Really?
Yeah, when all is said and done.
Yeah. Okay.
Paul,
That's unreal.
Christmas release dates?
Yeah, leave it as it is.
Yeah, working right.
It's an extra present.
It is. It's become more Christmas than Christmas to me, the Star Wars releases. That's what I'm looking forward to now. And next year's, you know, we've spoken about the loss of Carrie extensively this evening. Next year's movie will become the biggest movie of all time, simply because of the loss of Carrie Fisher. It will be that Dark Knight effect. And I'm not being ghoulish, and I'm not celebrating that fact.
I think you're definitely right.
To be honest, quite opposite. I mean, time's a great healer, and by that time, we'll only be looking back fondly anyway.
Well, I hope so. I do hope so. Okay, Steve, before we move off this Christmas release dates, what's this going to do with Avatar?
Well, I think the films are dissimilar enough and have... I think everyone can stretch to go and see 2 films of that calibre. If Avatar is due in 18, then I'm not going to be going, I'm only going to go and see 1. And even if I was destitute, I'd sell myself to go and see both. Literally,
you want to make money, mate.
I would be standing on street corners offering myself to homeless people.
Wandering up to Rob, pretending you're asking for the time. That old chestnut.
Yeah. I mean, I think
people with no money.
I was going to say.
Well, they shouldn't be seeing any film if they haven't got any money.
Steve, I think
they're probably not.
frighteningly optimistic. I suspect Avatar might end up running to the summer.
Yes.
Well, good.
Studios won't have that war.
They are too close. You're right. They're very
cynical monkeys.
They're very distinct, but they will cannibalise each other's audience. And if one's going to blink, it's going to be Cameron. I think he's going to move to the summer. It might actually work in Avatar's favour as well.
Hell of a chicken run if neither one of them backed off.
Well, I don't. What you
imagine.
mean? Bring it summer 18's too soon for Avatar. It's
Then
not really ready.
then they'll push it to the following May.
Yeah,
Because that window, which I think is currently, are they currently looking at episode 9 for May 2019?
Leave so.
I suggest that will move back
Hang on, May 2019
for 9, yeah.
for episode 9.
What? So what? 5 months after a Han Solo?
They'll push it back.
Yeah, they'll push it back almost certainly.
I think so. Here's a question, actually, on the subject of big blowout movies. When is Infinity Gauntlet supposed to drop? The first one, the Infinity War, rather, part 1. Is that 2019 as well, or is that 18?
2018, I think. The guys at Nerd Room are doing a Marvel retrospective. Every month they're doing a Marvel movie, ending with a review of Avengers Infinity War. So I think it's 16 months from now.
Okay.
Because that's what they're doing. They're leading up to that. It's a genius idea, isn't it? That's good. That's good planning, that.
Yeah, big time.
Okay, last piece of news of the evening. This is also Han Solo shaped. Woody Harrelson, the absolutely fantastic Woody Harrelson, is an apparent favourite to join the cast of Han Solo as the smuggler's mentor. Great news. Space Fagan, anyone?
I'd like to see him have kind of a short and sweet comedic role, like Keith Richards in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right.
He's
That's an unusual parallel to draw.
Well, I want him to not necessarily. I don't mean I want him to play a similar character. I just mean I want him to have that kind of amount of screen time and fill that kind of role.
Mm-hmm.
That's my sort of feeling on it.
He can do serious though.
He can.
Big time.
He's exceptional.
Documentaries on
Detective. What was the one he did?
True
with,
Detective.
McConaughey. That was good.
Yeah, he was great in that. I think either in a central role he excels, and in a supporting role he excels.
Well, People versus Larry Flint. He was amazing.
Yeah, and that was a challenging. That's a challenging thing to do as well, isn't it?
That was very out of the box. Very left field of the box.
He's in the documentary Zombieland. That's really good.
And that was one of my picks because I love that film and I love him in it.
He's brilliant in it. Yeah.
He often stills focus. He's often the best thing in whatever he does, even if it's a turd like Now You See Me. He's still great in it.
I like that. I like the first one.
Well,
What's the bowling
you
one?
are allowed to be wrong, Rob.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Kingpin.
I like him in the bowling one as well. I can't remember what it's called.
Kingpin.
Kingpin.
Yeah.
Kingpin, that's awesome.
I'll tell you what, though, Woody Harrelson has no idea how to use Reddit.
Really? Why? What did he do?
Oh, do you never heard this story?
No, go on.
I'll keep it really quick. So he did an AMA, which on Reddit stands for Ask Me Anything, and it means somebody comes on and that you can ask the person anything about their career, but they'll also be there to plug something. So Woody Harrelson goes on and says, "I'm going to be, I'm here to talk to plug my latest movie, Rampart." And people start asking him questions about things like Cheers and Zombieland, and he's like, "Guys, come on, I'm here to talk about Rampart." And they were like, "Do you understand what the second A means?"
Yeah, but what he thought it meant was ask me anything about Rampart.
Yeah, so exactly. I'm here to,
Poor Woody.
Yeah.
Well, they'll have to brush up on those skills if he's going to step into this franchise because this is something you don't want to get caught out on because you'll end up letting something slip that you shouldn't.
Yeah.
When you're talking to fans about Star Wars, is he a good fit?
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely nail on the head.
He's an actor. He can fit anywhere.
I really want to say. I hope this happens because I love this guy, and I'm so excited to think that he might have shaped that swaggering smuggler that we've loved for 40 years. What a great idea! Who better to be the mentor?
Well, you think? I mean,
Woody from
30 years ago, they would have cast like a Heston figure, which would have been so stereotypical and crap, frankly. This is far more exciting.
Yeah, these films, they're going to have a more contemporary feel about them, I think, aren't they? They'll dovetail neatly into what went before in the OT, but it'll be nice to see like a chancer, like a real scoundrel out there running a ring of little indie smugglers. Not indie as in Indiana, but independent. Great stuff, great news.
I haven't had a call yet for Lobot.
Paul Bot.
Paul Bot.
That's what you want. Prequel Paul Bot. All right, let's wrap this episode up. thank you for listening to Talk Star Wars again this week, and thanks for your patience with this rather difficult episode as we say goodbye to someone that meant a great deal to us. Don't forget to head over to iTunes and leave us that 5-star review, and we will Ron Burgundy that for you. You can email us questions and comments at talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on one of our many social channels such as Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, to name but a few. With that said, guys, where can people find you between episodes? Steve?
Yeah, same old thing for me. Wild About Nature on Twitter and YouTube. That's it, really.
Paul?
You find me on Twitter at Moviescore News, and you'll find me on the interweb generally at moviescorenews.com, and you'll also find me in Whitstable, Kent.
If you look hard enough. Rob?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RobWadeVision, and I'm also at Emotionally14, which has a website, YouTube, all that stuff. Emotionally14.com.
Wonderful. You'll find everything I do at talkstarwars.co.uk, and I'm at TalkStarWars on Twitter. Head to StarWarsCommonwealth.com and check out the other shows on our network, including The Tumbling Saber, Generation X-Wing, Rogue Squadron Podcast, the Skyhoppers Podcast, and the Nerd Room. And keep an eye out for episode 1 of the TSW Roundtable with Robert Cast. If you want to appear on that show, then send us an email. We'll make sure that Robert gets it, and he can put you into the lineup. Thanks again, everybody. We will see you guys next week.
Take care.
See you later. Bye-bye.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap.